everybody. If you could please take your seats. Fantastic. All right, so who made some new connections out there? You made 2? Fantastic. You get another gold star. Everybody else, did we make some new connections? Make some new friends, hopefully? You need more. Need more friends? Another round to make more connections. Okay, I'm sure we can fit another one in this afternoon for sure. And we do have 2 more fun-filled days as well. Plenty more time to make lots of connections. So let's take those seats, everybody. Let's take those seats, and we are going to move right along to our first talk for this afternoon, our first panel discussion. So this session dives into a topic that has been transforming the education sector: artificial intelligence. From adaptive learning platforms to automating administrative tasks, AI has become a powerful tool for enhancing education at all levels. So this next panel discussion is entitled Future Ready Schools: Integrating AI in Education for Adaptive Learning and Efficient Administration. We'll explore how educators and administrators can harness the potential of AI to personalize learning experiences and optimize operations. We'll hear about real-world examples, challenges, and strategies for successfully implementing AI in schools. So first of all, we'd like to welcome up our moderator up to the stage. His name is Michael Wozniak, trainer, consultant, and coach of AI and human performance at Optimistra. Please, let's welcome him up onto the stage. Thank you, Michael. And now our panelists to join Michael up here on the stage for this next session. Jalaj Desai, Head of School, Saddle River Day School. Gina Uttam Chandani, Co-founder Generation Officer, Tungsten Group. Alisa Avyazan, Member Board of Directors, Teichmann International IT Solutions. Let's put our hands together as we welcome them all up onto the stage. Please go ahead, Michael, the stage is yours.
Welcome to this panel, and I hope you had a good lunch and good exchanges also with all those wonderful people that are here. So today the panel will be entitled Future Ready Schools and Integrating AI in Education for Adaptive Learning and for Efficient Administration. So we're going to cover quite a lot of aspects. I am Michael Wozniak. I will be your host today. So perhaps you know about mind mapping and Tony Buzan. I am actually the Vice President of Tony Buzan International. I'm also the CEO of Optimistra, which is a strategic company that provides training, coaching, and consulting in the fields of education. Also, we work for the militaries. We work also for C-levels, and we are specialized also in artificial intelligence and the implementation of it within organizations. So, in today's panel, we're going to cover 4 different aspects of the main theme. First, we're going to take the point of view of the student. We're going to take the point of view also of the teacher. Then we're going to take the point of view of education as a system, and then administration. And at the end, we're going to have a few moments with questions from you to our amazing panelists, which we have here. They will have the opportunity to present themselves right before their first answer. And just because it's after the meal, I would like to ask you a question with hand risen, okay? I would like to ask you, who of you is confident in the potential of AI for the school system in general? The potential of AI. Raise your hand. Okay. Who of you now is confident about the way schools today handle the implementation of AI? That's exactly why we are here today. Okay. So now I want to welcome our 4 wonderful panelists, and perhaps we can jump right in the first theme, which we're going to take the point of view of the student. And the first question for our panelists will be, should the use of AI be simply forbidden to students, as many schools do, or should schools create a framework for a healthy, ethical use of AI? So who would like to start first?
Hello, everyone. I am Alisa, representing Techman International IT Solutions, and I also serve as Deputy Chair of Environment and Energy Commission of ICC Armenia. Well, I am an advocate for integrating AI rather than banning it, because today digital literacy is so important and essential. And I think instead of banning it and becoming an outliers, establishing truly working frameworks that would enable students of ethical use of AI is really important, because only in this way we can prepare future students for such a future that can really help also students enhance their academic performance.
And technology. I would definitely agree that AI should be adopted in the school system for students, rather than what maybe the opposite view, saying that it should be banned. And the reason why I say this, for me, the way I look at it is that already it's here to stay, I think, and it's already evolving beyond what we even thought it could be. And right now, even within obviously we are preparing students for the world of work and the world of business. If you look at those two spaces, the people that are, or the organizations that are not making use of AI in their employment or in business are the ones that are being left behind. So if we are preparing the students for that future, we will really just do justice to them if we make sure that those adoption of AI with the right framework, of course, ethically, as she mentioned, has to be done, I think. And for me, this is the main reason, is that in employment and business of the future, AI will be used beyond what we are seeing even now. So it has to be put together.
Hello all, my name is Jalaj Desai. I'm the head of the school at Sarah Liver Day School in New Jersey. We're about 25 minutes from New York City. We are now looking to open a campus in the Middle East, mainly Sharjah. In this process of AI, we also built an AI platform called proschool.ai, so if you have a chance, you can look it up. I think AI plays a very important role in education. It is finally, I think we have got a technology that truly personalized or differentiate learning for the students. You know, we have seen many different technologies so far, starting from LMS to computers, but all that, what it did was simply took what we used to do and gave a tool to simply say, oh, we're just going to do stuff electronically. So if you have a great book we used to write, now it just does it online. AI has an ability to actually tackle a lot of issues, starting from personalized learning, kids with special needs, and kids with all the underprivileged areas where there's a shortage of teachers, shortage of staff and resources. AI can finally handle that. So I'm very excited for what AI has to offer in the next 5 years.
Just want to comment on that. Hi, my name's Gina, and I am the co-founder and director of Generation Z Education and Training Solutions based here in the UAE. Although I do agree that AI is definitely the way forwards, from a perspective of children and students' cognitive development, there's a very fine line between understanding and comprehending what they're learning to just using AI for plagiarism. And I think the dependability of where students are getting dependent on AI to complete their assignments, to complete their workload, not really looking at the plagiarism aspect. Are they really using their own cognitive functioning? Or is it a matter of type the sentence, get the answer, humanize it, and then submit it. So this is something which, if it's not managed in the right way, in the future when it comes to the workplace, they're so dependent on the technology that they don't actually use their own thinking and processing.
Thank you. So it's really a complex matter because yes, there is the use of the tool and there is the proper use of the tool. And in fact, frameworks actually need to be implemented, and I think that everyone will agree on that. So that makes things more complicated, right? So now, in what ways can AI enhance student-teacher interaction? Okay? Rather than replacing it, because there are also ideas about replacing completely the teacher, but here, how can it be used to enhance the relationship between the teacher and the student?
I think the main privilege that we humans possess is our emotional intelligence, right? That at least as one of our panelists said, that AI doesn't have a soul. So what we can do, I think teachers can really focus on a couple of key strategies. First of all, they can really develop and build up their human skills, right? And for example, they can not act as simple exchanger of information or deliver that information, but instead they can mentor, guide, and build up relationships that, enhancing those qualities that AI cannot do. I personally consider that AI will never be able to replace teachers completely, right? Because it lacks this emotional part. At least whenever I use AI, I check it because you never know what happens tomorrow. And when I say, how do you feel today? And it replies, I don't have emotions. And I said, thanks God, we're still not there.
So, first of all, I don't think AI will ever replace teachers. Teachers cannot be replaced by any technology. However, teachers who don't learn AI, who don't adopt AI, will be replaced with teachers who know AI, that's for sure. One of the things that I think the student engagement piece is very important. And there are a lot of things that teachers can do, and mostly is personalized learning, where teachers now can actually create assignments and framework and lessons based on kids' interests, strengths, and weaknesses that didn't used to happen all until now, right? So this is gonna be a more personalized and differentiated learning. At our school, we've been using AI platform for almost 9 months now, where our teachers have AI assistants that kids are using it. So every day, students go home, and when they do homework, they're able to ask the teacher's assistant questions virtually. So if they're getting stuck at homework or they're getting confused, the AI assistant actually is helping kids understand it better than waiting for 24 hours and seeing the teacher is free or not and getting the answers from the teachers. So there's a lot of student engagement, important interactions can take place outside the school hours when teachers are actually so busy during school hours, and kids take advantage of technology and AI assistants to learn and engage in meaningful conversations.
I think for me, I would like to just share a personal story. So as part of one of our services, we train teachers, early years teachers in the UAE, as well as SENCO and SEN professionals. So I'm working with a lot of adults. And you would be surprised, since AI has come into play, how many assignments I'm receiving from active teachers who are adults, which are completely AI plagiarized. And I actually receive it, and I'm saying, you can see the structure of how AI is written. You can see that this is not them in the class. You can see that when I'm teaching them, they're not responding like this. So how are they producing an assignment like this? And these are all adults. So I actually have to tell them that, can you please redo the whole assignment because it's been completely AI plagiarized. My point to sharing this is that teachers first need to learn themselves how to manage and use AI in order to bridge the gap between them and the student. If they themselves don't effectively learn how to use it in a way which they're not just finding an easy shortcut, then that would be the best way to support the students.
So just to add, when I said we've been using it for 9 months, it took us 2 months to train our teachers
There you
so
go.
that they can learn AI and then apply those skills for the kids, right? So
Yeah. What's interesting for me is that the schools that we work with, like even just the most recent school, 3 months ago we started working with, they felt the use of AI is actually burdensome to them when it's supposed to be the opposite. And for them, it was more about them adapting or adopting the AI, meaning the teachers were very resistant to learning how to use AI to build lesson plans, create assessments, and other activities that they may find mundane in the classroom and in the tasks that they do as teachers. But also, let me just add to this is that there are 3 things that I usually tell the teachers that we work with, which AI cannot do. Number 1, imagination. AI can be creative, but it cannot be imaginative, so to speak, like a normal human being. So the imagination has to still come from a human being. Number 2, what she mentioned earlier, which is any aspect of emotional development. Social, emotional, and behavioral learning is very much becoming important in education now. That aspect cannot be done. Mentorship, things that involve physical activities with the students, AI cannot do that. So I see the way that if teachers actually, even with the training that we do, we try to get the teachers to focus on those things that the AI cannot do within the classroom to engage with students, while every other mundane thing that AI can do, they delegate, so to speak, to the AI in order to be efficient with their time.
Thank you. So, very interesting. The teacher, the importance for the teacher to be trained in AI. So that's why now we're going to switch to the teacher world and go further into this. So the question would be, how can teachers prevent themselves from becoming obsolete faced to the increasing self-learning capabilities with AI?
So I think to add to his point, to answer your question, like I'm looking at it from an early years perspective, 0 to 7. The classroom design is something AI can't do. The classroom design, how to structure the classroom where it's conducive to the children's learning, where they're able to get maximized play-based learning out of the classroom, AI can't do that. And that's something where the teacher comes in and puts their social emotional development in. Children that are coming in with additional needs, AI can't support that. That's when you would need a human impact to understand what is this child's needs, how do I develop an IEP, how do I implement that IEP, how do I differentiate learning, how do I cultivate a classroom where it's differentiated to different abilities and different levels. That AI can't do. So to answer your question, I think that is a very big aspect.
So I think teachers, first of all, I totally agree with you with the IEPs, because there are a lot of claims out there that companies can do better than teachers when it comes to IEPs, and I think that's all nonsense. Because we all know, early childhood especially, you need human touch. Even in high school, they need teachers. As far as teachers concerned, I think teachers have to constantly evolve themselves, constantly innovate themselves, reinvent themselves rather, and make sure they're learning about new technology coming up, because AI is much, much faster than what happened in laptop years or the calculators years or any other technology. This is evolving so fast that a lot of teachers are already kind of overwhelmed with how many resources are out there for them to kind of choose from. There's a different for math and different for science and different one for history and English. So there's so much out there. I think school administration needs to really come in, and the district administration, and really train teachers and make sure they are not overwhelmed, and focusing on what's important is learning and enhancing kids' outcomes, right? That's important. So how does that help? If teachers are not trained to teach properly, doesn't matter what kind of technology they have, if they don't know how to use it, they cannot teach kids with those tools. So it's very critical that teachers train them, and it's up to administration like us and governments to make sure teachers are getting training in this area.
So I will just build up on your thoughts, actually. So teachers should view AI as a complementary tool rather than as competitors. Usually, resistance takes place from the side of teachers because they view AI as a competitor, like leading to this teacher replacement phenomena. But it's not like that. And one solution to that, I think, would be that teachers really foster critical thinking among the students, because this way students and children can differentiate the biases and limitations of AI as well. Because AI is really easy to misuse, right? So fostering how they can do that, they can foster really an engaging classroom environment through creative assignments or interactive games, and they can really ensure this engaging environment where students will be really motivated to be creative and not to just fall in the intellectual frames, but just be really critical and imaginative, as my colleague said.
I completely concur with her that AI is a supplement, not a substitute.
Yes.
And I think specifically in the UAE, where there is such vast cultural differences, you go to a school where it's predominantly Arab speaking, you go to a school which is predominantly English speaking, that's where the teacher comes in because they understand the cultural differences. And that's really important for them to know that as well.
In the US also, they've adopted AI really, really well. I'm surprised how quickly the schools in the United States are adopting AI in schools, but they all understand 4 skills are still important: creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration.
Even conflict resolution. Today, if there's a conflict in your classroom, is AI going to come into your classroom and resolve it? No.
So let's imagine a world where teachers are taught in the field of AI, then they can teach the children, but we all know what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but what happens at home stays at home. Should teacher work more with parents and involve them more in the learning process for the children in order to avoid AI misusage?
Okay, definitely. I think you mentioned earlier on aspect of plagiarism. Most times this happens in the absence of the teacher. And where does that occur? At home, during homework, during computer-based tests and stuff like that. And I think, and I've seen this even with just this school that I was talking about as a case study. Parents, unfortunately, they are competitive also. So the biggest dilemma for them is that, okay, how do I control the use of AI for my child without knowing that the other parent's child is doing the same or not, so to speak. So it's almost like, I don't know if you remember in the movie The Dark Knight, when the ship, one had prisoners, the other one had civilians, and so each of them had a detonator. I mean, they were told to blow up the other ship, and the dilemma was that, okay, how do I know that this other one is not going to do what has been said not to do, so to speak. So the whole point is that, unfortunately, this is where we see the challenge, even with this case study that I mentioned, which is that many parents, they want their own kids to be the ones to compete better than the other kids. And so why should they listen to the teacher that is saying that they shouldn't, they should moderate the use of AI, you know? But I think for this, the best way to achieve this is to not allocate as much of scoring that will affect the final grade of the child to those assignments that go home. I think that's what we've been able to do for us, and anything that requires the teacher to be the one that in direct supervision of the child's activities, that's the one that we allocate more scores to. But even with that, sometimes it's not as straightforward as that.
I also think the context of where the AI is being used. For example, my personal experience, I have my daughter who's 14 and she spent hours on the computer trying to learn how to program a website because you're using a tool to support you. So I think educating parents that this is going to enhance their learning, not replace their learning.
Thank you.
I think collaboration here is the key, and I think teachers should make parents as their leading and guiding partners, which will really mitigate the misuse of AI. And there was even an experiment in UK schools. They initiated this with parents, and then try to monitor their progress. once they assigned children a very complicated task, I think third grade children. And what happened, it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was a very, very deep analytical description of a literature hero, Anna Karenina. And many parents next day appeared in the school, quite aggressive, asking how could you assign this to third grade students or children. And they said, okay, teacher said, okay, we were expecting you. This means we are really progressing AI just to be prepared for the assignment.
Thank you very much. Yeah, very interesting. So now let's take a step up and take the point of view of education as a field. Because you know, if you look at a schoolroom like 100 years ago, and most of the schoolrooms today, they are all the same. The methods are very similar. There are a few schools that are improving the methods. But now, since education has been evolving slower than technology in the last century, how could this evolution be speeded up?
So I think it's a good thing that it has not been so aggressive as the other industries. But when you have a technology like AI, which has a potential to do so quickly, we just have to be prepared for that. One of the things, just to kind of summarize what has happened with the AI in our school in the last 8 months, our teachers are every teacher now is going to our AI platform, just proschool.ai, and they are uploading, enhancing content, creating content on the spot. As you said, you have to be in the control, right? Teachers have to be in the control, so they are enhancing all the content. They have the AI assistant, which is a 24/7 tutor the kids can use. And then on the kids side, students are able to see all those personalized learning, take assignments, do homework, do essays, without actually having all the cheating issues, because we have some really strong guardrails that we've built. The kids can't cheat. All that is happening right now with the help of a tool, which didn't exist before, that allows teachers actually to have time to spend time on kind of working with the kids rather than just doing all the busy work. They're analyzing a lot of data, how kids are learning, what difficulties they're having, how much time they're spending on homework, what level of reading and writing they need to be focusing on. So teachers now are adapting to this change and doing something that's really critical is to teach kids. Last point I'll make is there was a recent survey that teachers only spend 32% of their time on instructing kids from the 100% of the job duties. That's awful, because teachers' responsibility is to teach kids. But only 32%, that's bad.
Anything to add?
I think one way to really mind this gap between this evolution could be integrating pilot programs and flexible policies, so that they can accelerate this adaptation, will be just bigger and bigger.
Thank you. Okay. So now we see a first vision in under-resourced schools and regions. How could AI help bridge the education gap in under-resourced schools or regions all over the world? Could it replace teachers where there is no teacher?
I think it can. However, you have to look at the financial implications, because if you're looking at underprivileged communities, you have to look at, is there government subsidies for this? How are the children going to have access to technology? Is this going to be funded by other organizations? There are a lot of macro factors to think about this. In essence, if that was all possible, it completely can, with virtual AI lessons which are done online. The only difficulty I would foresee would be those children's motivation to study. What is it going to take them to? What is the progression track? Where is it going to take them? I think that would be where I'm looking at it from both sides of the coin.
I think the answer is it has a potential, but there are a lot of roadblocks. But this technology does have the potential to meet the needs of any kid on the planet Earth. There are a lot of other technologies in the past that have come, and we get excited, virtual reality and this and that. But this one actually has an ability to reach every village in India or every rural area of Africa or every underprivileged communities in the United States. So it has potential, but many challenges ahead.
I also think that it depends in which perspective we talk about this replacement, because if it comes to hard knowledge, yes, children can get the hard knowledge from AI. If it comes to soft skills, developing the soft skills, which becomes more and more important in nowadays, I think it can never replace a teacher, and this human element really remains very, very important in this whole learning process.
Yeah, for me, regarding underserved communities, and I've seen this coming from Africa also, is that most of these underserved communities have also the least number of teacher resource, basically. So you have 100 students to one teacher or two teachers. So the way it has worked, I've seen it, as I said earlier, Rickman helps him so that the time that he would have used and be exhausted to teaching multiple other students, he uses the AI to free up his time so that he will have more energy and efficiency to handle even more students, basically, so to speak. So it's not to say that the AI directly will affect or improve those underserved communities. It's just that the AI being an enabler or a partner to this teacher is going to help his efficiency or his productivity to handle the multiple students and children that he normally would serve in those communities. So that's how I've seen.
Thank you. It's interesting because our panelists already covered the problem of the time spent with administrative tasks. That's why the fourth field that we want to cover now is the point of view of administration. Okay, we've noticed that there is a problem. So now, how can AI reduce administrative burdens for teachers, allowing them more time to focus on teaching and mentoring?
One thing I could say is attendance and class scheduling, timetable scheduling.
Better. These teachers are loving the platform. Plus, they are not answering email assistant. Also, teachers are focusing at allowing teachers to teach only 4 days a week now in our school instead of 5 days a week, which will allow them to have the fifth day just to prepare lessons and enhance materials. And
Yeah, and I think today there are class performance. It's really easy for the teacher later to see the progress of each child and customize a little bit the overall curricula.
Yeah, for me, I think to what you said, administration-wise, especially tasks that are mundane, for me, I keep repeating this point. If AI can do it, it will free up time and efficiency. But also, if we look at the three aspects of education, which is curriculum, teaching, and assessment, the key part that maybe AI hasn't done well, or we haven't seen much progress, is on the assessment side. And I'm saying this on 2 points. If assessment changes, or even if AI is used in assessment, things like plagiarism and also checking the right metrics of performance will be better enhanced. Because most students and teachers teach according to what they will be assessed according to, basically. And I think also the use of AI to do maybe computer-based tests and other forms of assessment also will help. So that aspect of education, assessment, is really, I think, underused when it comes to AI.
Just one more point. I think I would urge everybody in this room and everyone you know, talk to people who've been using AI in the schools. It would be much helpful for you to get familiar with what AI is and then pass on to our schools.
Thank you very much. So now, it's interesting. We need AI for administration and administrative work, but sometimes there are a lot of skills that are required to create those systems and to install those systems. So what partnerships between schools, tech companies, and governments would be necessary to make AI integration successful at scale?
I would think from a curriculum point of view, the curriculum providers, specifically the British curriculum, they really need to start adapting their
Companies in the United States, they have been actively using AI in their companies, so that you'll see more and more that's coming out. I would say one thing though that's very important for AI to work is companies like AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, because AI is expensive. The tokens are expensive. We spend a lot of money on our school because we are a private school, but not everyone can afford it for kids. That's the biggest hurdle right now, is the cost of running the AI.
Yeah, let me pick it up from his point now. Regarding costs and access, this is something that is affecting adaptability of AI. And for me, when it comes to partnership, I think governments and the international development organizations, if they can help, I think with internet access, electricity, and things like that, that really carry the burden of costs, that will help as far as partnerships is concerned, I think. So for me, this is where partnerships will really help.
And I think while public-private partnership really plays a key role here, and we also, but I personally think that donor organizations can be really helpful here as well, especially in underserved communities where they can really help governments subsidizing certain projects that would also be quite sustainable, helping them to install all this costly infrastructure. And as it comes to government, I think the setting standards is really important here.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we have covered 4 aspects, okay? There was the student point of view, the teacher, the education, and the administration. Now, I'm quite curious to ask you something. First, where do you see schools in 2040? 2040. Where do you see school? Just give a few keywords, okay? Just raise your hand and give the keyword, and I will repeat them for the audience, okay? Student directed, super. Yes? Prescribe to subscribe curriculum. I choose what I want to study. Super, yeah? Okay. So teaching / coaching. Coaching, okay.
Just
So
coaching.
really going from teaching to coaching. Okay. Okay. Yes, please. Empowered teachers. Super. Yes. Teachers as facilitators. Yeah. Okay. Nice. A subject like emotional intelligence, financial intelligence, and yeah, all those things that today are sometimes a little bit set aside. Yes. Life skills. Super. Yes. Sorry? Democratizing education, okay. Yes? Idea. Okay. New subject to okay, terraforming. Okay. Yes? Skill? Okay, focus on skills. Super. Last one, yes? Offline education. Okay, great. So, brother. Okay, so knowledge, skill, application now, and reversing it. Application, skill, knowledge. Okay, thank you. So now it's good because now you start to raise some ideas. We have a few minutes left if you have questions to ask to our panelists, okay? So if you have a question, please just stand up to the microphone and you can ask your question.
I'm not gonna ask a question because they cover everything about AI. But I'm thinking to change something in the title. Instead of saying AI, let's say emerging technology. Emerging technology. Because we are right now living in the digital transformation era. DX or DT cover everything. If you're gonna apply AI, it's okay. But it's not like a trend. You're gonna have a strategy for everything. DX strategy that can lead you
Tell it to the Education 2.0 to organizers.
Thank you. I'm not sure how many have read this book, Student Focus from John Harry. Though it was written in 2018, before the emergence of AI, there are a lot of things that he talks about basically is very relevant today. Question to the panelists. When I did the 3.0 presentation on AI at the IB conference in Jakarta, I put 5 questions. So you got only 5 people there. So how many of you are scared?
Scared
Of AI?
Excited.
excited.
No, I'm coming. In the order. There is scared, there is threatened, there is worried, there is challenged, there is excited. Good.
Excited.
We are from Singapore. Singapore is actually leading in the AI sector, especially in the MOE schools. We use in Singapore for feedback assistant, language model, and helping the teachers to do everything that takes a lot of admin time. So we are ahead compared to, I would say, almost other countries in the world. My question is, again, where do you see research again says that in 8 years' time, you will not have any closed classrooms. It's open classroom. So where do you see in 8 years' time the teacher who is going to do a difference in the learning?
So I think to answer your question, there's one element of being excited to see where AI can take us.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're being realistic, there's the other element of being worried because teachers may not be as required. To be very honest, although the title says future-ready schools, there may not be any schools. There might be learning from various different locations. So when we're looking at it as education as a whole, there is a slight worry of what's going to happen at that level. Will we be having schools? Will we be having facilities? Will there be principals? Will there be deputies? Will there be head teachers? Will there even be any teachers? So there is a little bit of that worry.
So I think I've heard the open classroom, closed classroom since 20 years now. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I'm a firm believer in AI and technology and all that stuff. The school's going to remain schools. I think kids going to go to schools, especially in the next 15, 20 years. It's not going anywhere.
Okay, so I teach IB physics. I will tell you how I use in the classroom, because we will say children do, plagiarize, copy things. So when I give an assignment to the kid, I will always say, write your response to the question first. Same question you put in ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, you get 3 + 4 answers. Your task is to summarize everything, give me the best answer. That's where the creativity and critical thinking is coming from. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's an interesting approach also. Yeah? Excellent. We have time for one more question. So yes, please come to the microphone. We have 3 more minutes.
Okay, this discussion has generally dealt with education. I'm not really quite sure what the limit of that definition was, because it seems to be from birth to death almost. But with AI, in Australia anyway, they're now looking at legislating a ban on kids getting access to social media under 16 years of age. Other countries around the world are apparently looking at the
I can't
same
hear
thing.
anything. I'm sorry. The door. Can you close the door, please?
Right. So yeah, other countries seem to be looking at the same sort of legislation of trying to keep kids off computers up until a certain age to allow kids to be kids. Now, the admin side of it, yes, computers have always tried to help with admin and AI is part of that. But where do you see the difference between an age limit on kids being kids, as opposed to kids being taught about how to be a kid by a computer that doesn't have a soul and doesn't have the parents having responsibility for their education. Because after all, worldwide, there's a lot of problems around with discipline and all that. And we're all going, oh, it's someone else's problem, it's not the parents. But if AI continues down this path, is there going to be a problem in which we are saying we are now no longer responsible for the actions of our children because they were taught? That's the general thing. How do we look at education? Is there going to be, or should there be, limits on when computers and AI should be the ones that are dictating, and when should they be left to children to interact with teachers and people, to be people and to be children, and when can we let loose a little bit and say, okay, AI can help them, when they can understand it, the misinformation and the incorrect information out there, the incorrect understanding of information out there is becoming a huge problem. And that hopefully is age specific, that once you get some idea of what is right and wrong, you can then read something and go, that doesn't make sense, maybe it's not right, I have to look it up again. Whereas when you're below, maybe you do not understand the difference.
I will have to now give the word to the panelists.
I think to your point is what I mentioned at the beginning, that when do children develop their own cognitive independence to answering or to repeating any assignments or completing them. And I think what would be a very interesting topic for a panel discussion is understanding the impact of AI on children's mental health. And I think that's something which we really need to start looking at. Things like anxiety, stress, depression, so many factors that can come in where children become over-dependent on the use of AI. So I think that's something which would be definitely an area we need to explore.
Yeah, I think people on the ground, a lot of the educators, I'm not sure we all are experts in when it comes to all the skills, and I think it needs to be by the governments. They need to come up with the committees and task force to kind of do some research on it, and research not just for a 3 months or 6 months long data, but like a research in depth and figure out what this means, because you questioned it and you have all the good answers in your question too. So I think it's a really unknown territory at this point in my mind.
Yeah, for me, I think it's not about age, it's about readiness. And I'll give an example. For instance, in Nigeria, you see that unless a child has mastered the times table, for instance, up to a certain level, the teacher wouldn't allow that child, the school wouldn't allow that child to have a calculator. You must have mastered a certain level of arithmetic offhead before you're given the calculator. Same as there's a subject we teach called technical drawing, but it's basically like 3D drawing. So unless you master technical drawing by hand and plain sheet, they're not going to give you access to AutoCAD or SketchUp or some of these other technology tools. Same as even typing, writing essays and stuff like that. They don't give you access to Microsoft Word until you have mastered a very, very almost perfect handwriting before they give you access to MS Word or MS PowerPoint and things like that. So I think it's about readiness rather than about age. So that's why maybe differentiated instruction maybe and some of those other student-centered learning in terms of, because they may be all the same age, but they are not at the same level of cognitive maturity, or even in terms of behavioral maturity and stuff like that. So for me, I think that's how.
I also think that schools will still remain because socialization with peers is so important for a normal child brain development. So it doesn't matter how many facilities and tools and access you would have. It's still very important that children go to school and socialize with peers. And because even if they get that hard knowledge of simple behavioral norms, they need an environment for execution. Otherwise, it cannot become a reality, and in the end, they may become just some isolated and, you know, have really challenges in further life, real life.
And I think just to the last point as well to that question was that it's very important for schools and parents to work, individual schools or within a governance, to work where there is clear policy and legislation, where schools can use AI to collect data to understand, are the children becoming too dependent? What is their attendance? What is their performance? And to develop solutions where maybe 3 hours of the day you don't have access to AI. If they feel that the community, the student body and the community is showing negative consequences of the use of AI, then the school has to make adaptive techniques to support that, and vice versa.
Thank you very much. And I think this is a nice conclusion to this panel. So first, I would like to thank our wonderful panelists. Please give them a hand. And thank you also to all of you for your participation, for the questions, for your attention. And we hope you all the best for the rest of this day and those 3 days that we're going to spend together. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very informative talk there, so interesting. I'll just have their photo. Okay, fantastic. Let's give them another round of applause as they make their way back down. Okay, now for our next session, we're diving into a topic that's on everyone's mind, the future of work. As industries evolve and technology advances, the skills needed to thrive in the workplace and changing rapidly. As the hospitality sector continues to expand and evolve, the foundational role of educational institutions in shaping career-ready professionals have never been more critical. Our upcoming panel discussion is entitled, "The Role of Schools in Shaping Hospitality Professionals." We'll take a deep dive into the transformative influence that schools hold over the future of hospitality. We'll explore the myriad ways through which cutting-edge curriculum, experimental learning opportunities, and robust industry collaborations are designed to equip students with the advanced skills necessary to thrive in a fast-paced and ever-changing environment. So we're going to welcome up, first of all, our moderator for this discussion, Professor Dr. Scott Richardson, PhD. He is the Academic Dean of Abu Dhabi Hospitality Academy, Les Roches. Please put your hands together for Professor Dr. Scott Richardson. Fantastic. And joining him up here on the stage, our panelists would like to welcome up Stacey Kasek, Revenue Manager, F&B and Spa, Atlantis The Palm and The Royale. Dr. Lawrence Brown, Director, Principal Consultant, National Life Skills Academy. And Alan Tupikoff, Executive Director of Finding Other Solutions. Let's put our hands together for all of our panelists and our moderator. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Happy National Day weekend. I'm happy to see everyone here today, given that it is a long weekend, so really appreciate your time as we have a discussion around hospitality education. So, as mentioned, My name's Scott. I'm the Academic Dean at Abu Dhabi Hospitality Academy La Roche. The Academy in Abu Dhabi is only 10 weeks old. We opened our doors on September 16. And one of the key roles of the Academy in Abu Dhabi is to really increase awareness of hospitality as a career for local students, whether that's local Emirati students or local students who are expat students that are studying here in the UAE. So one of the things that we do a lot is work with our school counsellors to really try to prepare our school students for what a career in the hospitality industry looks like. And today, particularly in the UAE, the industry is flourishing, and there's so many great opportunities in this industry. But one thing we see a lot of young people do when they come into hospitality is they tend to enter the industry at 17, 18, and the idea is that they're going to work in hospitality until they find their real job. And what we're trying to do is get them to see hospitality as a career and show that there's various avenues that they can go. So I'll just introduce the panel, and they'll introduce themselves, and then we've got a few questions that we'll go through. So firstly, Stacey Kazak, the Revenue Manager at Atlantis, the Palm and the Royal. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much, Scott. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stacey. I actually represent La Roche as an alumni. I graduated about 4.5 years ago, and since then I came to Dubai and I worked with Atlantis the Palm, and then later we opened Atlantis the Royal. So I stayed in my position of revenue. We actually overlook restaurant revenue specifically, so around both resorts we look after 70 restaurants, which takes time, challenges, and anyway, Atlantis the Palm, Atlantis the Royal, both hotels which consistently thrive, and every day we face a new challenge. However, we learn how to deal with them and how to welcome and always provide the extraordinary experience to our guests and clients. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Stacey. And next we've got Professor Lawrence Brown, Director of Education and Training at Future Vision 2030.
Good afternoon, everybody. So, quickly, I have been here since '97, and I'm a curriculum designer, and I have worked for the High Colleges of Technology as a manager, and I wrote and authored the first online degree in the GCC back in 2002. And I've also worked as the Dean for the Royal University for Women and as the Transnational Dean for Raffles, and I've spent the last 8 years until I retired as Director of Education Director of Learning for Saudi Aramco in Dhahran. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Lawrence. And finally, Mr. Alan Chubikoff, the Executive Director at Finding Other Solutions. Alan.
Good afternoon. My background is that I have an interest in sustainability. I also have an interest in general education and training, so that sort of put me into these sorts of positions. And I suppose COVID really outlined a lot of things to a lot of people, in particular how hospitality is affected by external factors.
Excellent. Yes, it's one of the challenges we've definitely faced over the last few years, because obviously during COVID, we know that there was millions of people in the hospitality industry that were laid off during that time, and a lot of those people haven't come back to the industry. So the industry has really been struggling probably for the last 3 or 4 years to attract good, high quality and educated staff. So that's where I think the schools and the hospitality schools in particular can really play a role in that. So I guess, so we're getting into a few different questions that we're going to go through now. So the first one is, obviously the hospitality industry is quite practical in nature. You know, we are working with people, we're working on our feet, and so there's a lot of that practical work and practical skills that's there. In schools, and in particular hospitality schools, we also teach a lot of theoretical knowledge as well. So in your view, how can schools effectively bridge the gap between the theoretical knowledge that students need to be able to manage in the industry and the practical skills that they require to actually do the job in the hospitality industry. Stacey?
Yeah, I'll be pleased to answer that. I do believe that the hospitality schools that currently are there existing provides this perfect mix of practical classes and theoretical classes, and it's actually really great that you get to experience this right as you enter school. So usually the practical part happens in your first year. So as you've selected hospitality as your professional career and you start your studies, you in your first year actually get to experience, you get to go through all of the practical parts, actually understanding whether do you have a passion for it or not. Because this is the beginning, and from then on, you will have to study 3-4 years and then potentially pursue your master's in the same field. You have to be very decisive about it. Is it actually something you want to do with your life? And this is where I see hospitality schools are built in this perfect way that you actually get to feel it. You just have to do it in the first year, and it gives you this perfect understanding whether are you ready to continue your life with this. And I really value it overall La Roche specifically for this, but all of the other hospitality schools that provide this experience. And I will actually add as well from the recruitment side. When you recruit somebody, you probably know that everyone wants someone with experience. It's very hard to recruit someone who doesn't have experience because you do not know how people will show themselves as their employees. And as well, this is where it's really good and helpful for hospitality schools and actually hiring people from hospitality schools, because we know that these are students who actually worked a little bit. They actually had to go through some challenges, some struggles. They had to add a little bit of sweat in it and actually worked through it. So this is a really good step that there is the practical and theoretical mix in hospitality schools.
Perfect. Thanks, Stacey. Lawrence?
Oh, this one's an interesting one. I like this. Earlier in the year, I was asked if I could write a school curriculum for a school system in Saudi, which is a normal school. It's not a hospitality school. It's a normal school. Could I write a school curriculum in hospitality and etiquette and diplomacy training? So I've written a 6-year school curriculum this year. It's a syllabus outline with the beginnings of curriculum and methodologies for engagement and the range of topics. And I don't see this as being part of the school curriculum. I see this as being part of the quality assurance requirement for adding value to the curriculum, extracurricular added value. And I see this as being taken as modules, giving students, young people, the choice if they're interested in specific modules, little communities of learning, probably like an online MOOC course, like a 4 or 6 week course that they could take of their own volition in their own time. I facilitated communities of learning like this in Aramco, where you've got 6 or 7 people taking one course at the same time, and it's worked really well. And I love the idea of extending what I've been doing for the last 15 years or so, of modular learning and giving students choice in order to help them gain some level of self-esteem. And the choice gives them huge motivation, which is something I never had at school. I never had any choice. I left school with nothing. I left school with 1 O level, and then I failed all my A levels because nobody gave me any choice. So it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I felt free enough to make my own decisions and do it of my own volition. But I think instilling at a very early age the idea that you can pick and choose your own modules in any of the major topics that are in this curriculum, then I think it would give students a huge motivational kick to pick up self-esteem. And actually I've been also asked to work with another institution in Bahrain in order to help build vocational training colleges, because they've got 20 universities and that's about it. And the locals, the Bahrainis, can't really afford the universities. They're so expensive. So your average Bahrainis got nowhere to go unless we bring in this hospitality idea, because it's massive now in Saudi. So for example, 5 million Saudis are supposedly going to be trained up for the tourism industry. That's a massive undertaking in Saudi. I spend my working life in Saudi and Bahrain. So I see huge potential in the school systems there, in the normal school systems, for evoking an interest and engagement for young people in the many, many different fields that happen within the etiquette, diplomacy and hospitality and tourism industry. So I think there's huge potential there. And the institution I'm beginning to work with in Bahrain has a wonderful curriculum which is very affordable for Bahrainis. Hugely, it's possible for them to do this, and the engagement levels are going to be sky high. So I think that's a huge plus for this, moving into this new system.
Excellent. And Alan?
Okay, I suppose I come from a different area because in Australia, most of the schools, and I'll clarify that, schools as being ordinary high schools as opposed to specialist hospitality schools, most of the schools always offered either they call it cooking or hospitality or whatever was a trendy term at the time. But this was people who said, okay, I'm not really good at this sort of subjects, but I'll do hospitality or I'll do woodwork or I'll do metalwork. So these kids, and that was all that, these are high school kids largely, they went through and they were taught basics of tourism in terms of setting up a restaurant, running these things. But when you look back after a few years, you look back, were they actually being taught that? And the answer often was no, they weren't. They were being taught how to be humans, operating in a general society. Because some of these kids were from families who didn't understand nutrition. They didn't understand how to cook properly, how to balance budgets for buying things, what to look for, what to include for them. So they were being given life skills. And some of those kids said, I liked it, therefore I will then continue on. And then Australia has always had a lot of people where they could go to TAFE courses, vocational courses and that sort of thing as well. And they would again do bar work, or they would do setting up restaurants and that sort of thing. So there's been this general feeling there. And as a person who's in my time of life now is looking at sustainability, I look back and I think that was what was happening back there. So the school-based training was setting people up with life skills, with health and wellness skills, budgeting skills, managing skills, being able to think and be innovative, because in the hospitality industry you turn up one day and you've got a bad client there. I don't care how good you are, logic won't even come into that discussion to solve that problem. So they were taught a lot of that, and then those who were able to continue on. Now I think that later is where nowadays it's not faring as well as it used to, because those people now need more training than what they've got, and the industry needs to be starting to say, let's do it properly. And without these sorts of courses, the standards are not there. And without internationally recognised standards, as we said before, people advertise for a job. I don't know what that person's ever done because they're not doing those standards. So it's a combination of setting up expectations, but the hospitality industry in itself drives so many other key industries. It drives agriculture, it drives manufacturing, it drives banking and finance, and people giving birth to children properly and being able to raise their children. So I think we need to be looking right outside the box to what is really there, and how hospitality is going to work with all of the environments to produce better people, not just better hospitality employees.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think one of the things that we do see with the hospitality schools, the hospitality universities, is that a lot of our graduates actually don't end up in hospitality. They end up in other industries like finance, like banking, like insurance, because those companies are looking for people that have those people skills, and they want people that can actually work with their customers. So, really good point. And Lawrence, did you have something there as well?
Yeah, when I put this curriculum together this year and I looked at the widest range of future-proof topics that I could put into it to make it meaningful 5 years down the line, I realized exactly what you were saying, Alan, that it's producing people with a caring, emotive personality, somebody who can enter an area of conflict and know how to handle a conflict, somebody who can show emotional intelligence in a conversation, somebody who can recognize and empathize with others when they're in difficult situations. And there are other things that come into it as well. It's not just an increased moral compass, but it's a way of communicating, of active listening. Coaching skills come into it. And there are other things that come in as well that actually make you a better human being with your moral compass and the way you relate to people and accept people. It's a huge life skills well of wealth. That's the only way I can put it.
And I guess, Stacey, from that point, obviously La Roche and the other hotel schools around the world as well focus a lot on those extracurricular activities rather than just the curriculum itself. So can you tell us a little bit about the extracurriculum activities you did to really come up with that customer service personality that you guys have?
Definitely, but as well, I believe that those schools, and I will go in specific, so in La Roche you get to meet all of the nationalities and you get to literally learn about different cultures, different people from so many countries of the world in over 3.5 years. So you actually learn about them and you learn about differences which you probably will never learn anywhere else unless you travel the world quite often. And in hospitality, you have to work with different nationalities, you have to work with different type of people, and you have to learn how are you supposed to react to different type of situations. And this is where those international hospitality schools come in play, that you get to spend time with students, you make friends with people, you make different type of activities. La Roche specifically, we had so many sports, we had so many different classes when you had to actually apply your practical skills, your theoretical skills into practice. We had our mini hotel where we have to actually practice, you have to learn, you have to do the housekeeping classes. You actually do lots of work, and you learn about yourself, first of all, because you are put in situations where you probably haven't been in life by this age of 18, 19, the young students. So you learn about yourself, you learn how do people react, you find your way, how do you make friends with people that you're probably not familiar with, and the cultures and nationalities. This is how the international school help. And this is how, for example, in my personal experience, now being 5 years in an actual industry working for a big property, it helped me a lot. Working with right now over 100 nationalities we have in my property. And it does take some time an appreciation from me when I remember I actually had to face some kind of challenge or even speaking with a guest. And I remember that at some point in La Roche when I was studying, we've talked about it. It's something that came through education, and it helped in your professional career to be exposed to just this kind of nationalities.
Excellent, perfect. And Alan, you touched on a little bit. You sort of talked about innovation, and Lawrence, you talked about future-proofing. And I think one of the things that has been a hot topic, and I was at the HSMAI, which is the Hotel Marketing Conference in Dubai last week, and almost every panel was talking about AI and how AI is changing everything we do. Obviously, schools, education providers are grappling with AI at the moment, and how do we make sure that the work that the students are actually giving us is their work. But from a school's point of view, what role should schools, and hospitality schools in particular, play in fostering innovation and that entrepreneurial thinking amongst the students? Alan, we'll start with you.
Stay away from AI as a starter. Okay. For the last panel, I did ask a question at the end in terms of when AI should be allowed to be involved in raising children. And I think hospitality courses at the moment, that is a very valid one. When children are children, they have to learn to problem solve, they have to learn to be innovative. And if you pick one version, say, of hospitality, chefs have always had and always will have a reputation for being very fiery and to try and keep sharp objects away from them as much as possible. But if they bring in the daily's fruit and veggies for the day, and some of the veggies are not that good, a good chef will stop and think, okay, what can I do with that tonight to still deliver what I've got to do? So they have to be able to think on their feet and to move. A front of house person is the same thing. You've got to be able to get on your feet and say, right, I've got to solve that problem today because I've got this guy complaining his bath's too small or whatever. So you're looking for people who are going to be innovators, who are going to be thinkers, who are going to be problem solvers. And they need to be able to be trained to do it. You can't, sometimes you can go onto a computer in a hotel and the computer will tell you, right, room 3205 is available. Okay, you can do that. But the person has to understand why they're doing it and what the ramifications are of it, and also what they can get away with promising as compensation without the boss coming back and say, right, you're out because you've just given away this week's profit margin to try and solve the problem. So hospitality is great. AI will solve certain problems, but AI will not solve the basic ones, which are creating humans to solve humans' problems on the spot, one-on-one. You can't sit there and say, please, ChatGPT, how can I do this to solve this problem? Well, too late. You've got to be able to work that out from the beginning. So, you know, where I say keep AI away. Keep AI away in the early days until we can get people who can think and motivate themselves and then help them out to get those done quicker later on.
Lawrence?
Well, it's just I was thinking, my daughter's flying to Nagano today to start front of house in a ski resort. She's 18 and apparently her mother says she's absolutely terrified. Also, I remember in the police that an average young bobby on the streets, when confronted with a conflict situation, their heartbeat could race up to 160 beats a minute to make an arrest. And I think that's the kind of emotional intelligence and resilience that we need to make sure we're building into these curriculum. Thinking on your feet quickly under stressful situations with people who can be, in one way or another, unpleasant or aggressive as well. And there are many reasons. I mean, this morning we had a talk about addiction. And Neith was saying that the charity that she set up is now working in Qatar to help work with agencies in their support groups in Qatar for addiction. Also in the hotels, they're training people to recognize addiction from staff to customers and the kids of customers and how they're going to deal with addiction when it comes face to face. And of course, there are many definitions of how that can be manifest in practical situations. So the range of skill sets that we're teaching here are life skills akin to really very few other roles that I can think of, to be honest.
Excellent. And Stacey, innovational entrepreneurial thinking, from your point of view, how important and how, what role did La Roche play in fostering that within yourself? So, innovation and entrepreneurial thinking.
Well, I would support definitely that AI is it's already part of our day-to-day, and it's there. We have to deal with it. However, I would agree with whatever was mentioned earlier, that definitely hospitality is about it's about personal experience, it's about human to human. No AI ever in the world would be able to replace this personal touch. And now in hospitality, every day we get to think, how else can we make the experience more personalized? How else can we make this moment special for each and every guest that comes to a hotel? It's just AI would never be able to do that. As well, in hospitality in schools, I believe that it's important that students still gather together. It's in-person class that exists, because exactly when we are in one room, this is when we strategize, this is when we generate ideas, this is when we exchange ideas, and I do not really see at this moment in life how AI could replace this. Yes, it will support us, and I agree it will be here to a specific level. However, a human touch will be always very important in it.
Also, they've got collaboration and team working. No AI can relate to the level of cohesive team working that happens in hospitality and tourism. And of course, how are we defining these things? We're not just defining them as hotels, we're defining them as airports, airlines, ports, hospitals. This is all coming in. I mean, I was asked by Price Waterhouse about 2 years ago, Lawrence, could you just please put together a roadmap for us to show us how to bring in quality assurance across the tourism industry in Saudi Arabia? Well, have a think about that. Could you just give us a roadmap to how you would bring in quality assurance across the tourism industry in Saudi Arabia? I mean, think of what that includes. Think of the 5 million people employed and the different roles and jobs they've got. Think of the insurances. Think of the suppliers. It's just unbelievable. You know why they ask us to do these things, don't you? Because they can't do them themselves. And it's not just one person they're asking, it's 10 or 15 who they know can come up with a response. And then they gather those 10 or 15 to nothing. Only about probably 5 people would respond to that, I would imagine. And then they supply them off to the company or to whatever to try and get the contract. It's actually immoral, and they don't really understand what they're doing. And I'm not just picking them out, it's happened to various others, friends of mine as well, who know a lot about a lot like quality assurance. Could you please go to Qatar and show us how to quality assure and improve and implement improvements from elementary school to PhD level across Qatar? What? I mean, is that really what you want us to do?
I think too, just to keep on this thing of teamwork, then, one of the things in today's environment is that most of the large type of hospitality industries are very heavy users of energy. They're very heavy producers of waste. They're very much in the sustainability equation at the moment. And people today want to go to green resorts. Whoever knows what green means these days, but anyway. So you're looking for people to be able to say, okay, I'm putting a resort on a desert island with no power, no water, no waste, no amenities, no way of getting product over to them, but I've got to do it. So they have to come up with a way that they're not going to wreck the planet whilst they're doing it. So whilst we're talking about the staff being involved in it, it is right through everything to do with hospitality. And the chart for today, we talked about 2040 before. The charter for 2040 for hospitality is to how to make that industry a sustainable one, because in most areas, the staff come from the local town, village, community, whatever. You are affecting people's life. You are giving them a life. Every one of the United Nations SDGs through hospitality, and that has to be carefully managed, carefully controlled, carefully understood and implemented to make hospitality what it's supposed to be, a top quality service industry that assists people in delivering their dreams and ambitions.
Excellent. Some really, really good thoughts. I think one of the other challenges, obviously, of AI. 2 years ago, AI didn't exist, and all of a sudden today, it's everywhere. So we're constantly looking at La Roche and at other universities where I've worked, and I'm sure in the K-12 sector as well, is how can we make sure that we're evolving our programs and what we're delivering to our students to make sure that we are preparing them for the challenges, but also the opportunities that lie ahead in a globally shifting landscape. With the kids today, you start a 4-year degree. Who knows if in 4 years' time the degree that you've studied even has a job at the end of it. Now, hospitality, I can safely say, we will still, given the thoughts this afternoon, we'll definitely need hospitality, that face-to-face touch. But how can these schools evolve their programs? And Lawrence, you've done a lot of work in this sort of curriculum development. You're talking about Saudi and Bahrain. What do we need to do to ensure that our programs are meeting those needs?
I think you have to just keep reassess it, don't you? You just have to keep reviewing it. It's like an iterative process with customer feedback. It's not going to be fixed. It's going to be modular, and people can pick and choose the modules they feel they need to do. I remember at Raffles, they asked me to look at the 14 different degrees, all of them art and design, transport design, jewellery design, and I had to equate them all back to 24 modules, and I found some of them were 36 modules. Why are some students doing a third? We have to keep building on it, like sustainability. Sustainability and how they're dealing with it on degrees and master's degrees, even the courses you do at your college. Sustainability is huge, but it's going to get bigger and it's going to change, and every year it's got to migrate, it's got to evolve, it's got to adapt. And that's the only way it can remain viable, like an iterative process. It cannot be fixed. These degrees, these 3 and 4 year degrees are dead in the water, and they're going to be pulled down from the inside out. It's not a top-down directive, it'll be a social pull to change them away to be a lot more meaningful and practical. It's happening in schools all over the world. There's 60 error, because they know that they're sitting at desks 6 hours a day learning absolutely nothing that's going to help them with this tidal wave of change that's heading their way. And why is that? Because the teachers don't know. I mean, this is the first time in history that teachers don't know what jobs they're preparing children for. How can that be good for anybody? Seriously, the whole system needs to be transformed immediately. And you know what's not doing it? I mean, I've worked across schools and colleges across Asia, and in Asia it's parental control. They don't want to change. I suffered academic rigor, you suffer academic rigor, it's character building. They don't want to get rid of the O-levels and A-levels. If you go back to Queensland in the 90s, the new basics curriculum that they stakeholder tested 10,000 people, they realised that the O-levels and A-levels that kids were going to interviews for were not working anymore. An employer in a factory in Darwin is not the same employer in Brisbane, it's not the same employer in Melbourne. They have different needs, and they're saying, well, I've got 15 people sitting in front of me, all the same age, with all the same qualifications. I have no idea who to employ. So the new basics curriculum said, okay, deal with it. Here's the money, you deal with it, and let us know if it works 3 years from now. So a lot of them flicked over and across to internships. You treat children like children, they'll behave like children. You tie them to a desk and they will revolt, because generally they are revolting. And if you treat them like children, they'll behave like children. But if you treat them like adults and put them in teams, in companies, incentivized for a few weeks at a time to work in roles, they'll behave like adults. They will take responsibilities. Pygmalion effect. They will behave. They will take responsibility. And so they came at what needs to happen. We need to put the onus back on the young people to make choices and support those choices. That is how the transformation must take place. We started doing it here 25 years ago. I flipped the classes in the higher colleges of technology. Please, Lawrence, could you write us the second degree for the higher colleges of technology? There's an engineering degree, but we need an applied communications degree across Abu Dhabi men's, Abu Dhabi women's, Dubai men's, Dubai women's, 33 students, graduates. They're in their 20s. I didn't know the best way to work with them. I'd been in the military college. Wallah, teacher, sleep teacher. So I didn't know quite what to do with them. And so I asked them, and after a couple of months we'd come up with a solution, which was flip the class. So I would write, today it wasn't them because we didn't have them, like a wiki page. This is an introduction to semiotic theory. There's some links at the bottom that I checked that are really good. Go and have a look at it. When you come back next week, we'll chat about it. So you come in the classroom, you say, okay, who did all the work? Who checked all the links? And then they say, well, this was my learning journey. And if you look at a class of 15, you've probably got 5 who did, 5 who did nothing, and you've got this continuum in between. So the moment you flip the class and become a coach and you start coaching the conversation, you get this wonderful peer teaching going on. And that's the methodology that we're going to have to move to. It's not teachers as teachers. It's teachers as facilitators with coaching techniques. And this is beginning to take off big time anyway. Teacher training needs to change. Sorry, I went into a rant, didn't I? But I think it's necessary.
With your La Roche courses, would you that your courses deliver solutions? Some solutions mixed in with the ability to keep on learning and to keep on developing. Because the courses, as we were saying before, the is the answer A plus B equals C. The new ones are A plus B equals C normally. However, if you put D and E in, A plus B plus D and E may equal F. People in with the innovation to say, here is the basic, you don't know any. You've just been given enough to get going in the rest of your life, and by the time you might know most of the industry that you're in through innovation and ongoing self-learning.
So Stacey, you went through the 3-year program. How would you answer that question from a La Roche point of view?
Definitely. It's something that it gives you a base, and then it teaches you what do you need to do in order to find the solution to an answer. So you consistently need, like, which tools can you use in order to get from a point A to point B. And you will always find those people who don't want to go there, so I believe there is always, it needs to come from a student. You need to have a goal, you need to have a motivation to go somewhere, first of all. But in La Roche specifically, they provide you with the tools, and you go with this through years of education, and then later in your career, you're able to use these tools and actually convert it into something that will be promoting you in your career path. So in this, I fully support that it's actually important that it's not just the solution that is being delivered or taught in school, and it's not just some useless theoretical classes. It's something actually which is meaningful and interesting to each and single student. But as well, it is a tool that you're going to be using and moving with it throughout your life.
And I think, Alan, to another point you made there, and Lawrence, you talked about as well, was the importance of internships. And at La Roche, we do internship in the second semester. So the students come in for one semester, they spend 5-6 months with us, and then we send them straight out to industry for 6 months. And a lot of people that come into the academy will say, you know, the students aren't ready. Why are you sending them out so soon? But they need to get out to industry. They need to understand the realities of what it is like to work. So when they come back to us in the second year, when we're actually talking about those theoretical subjects and we're giving them the tools, they actually understand and they can actually apply those tools to real life examples that they've seen through the internship. So I agree, internships are a great way for students to learn on the job. At La Roche in the 4-year degree, students do 2 6-month internships, as well as a final 6-month option to do an internship in their final semester as well. So we have heavily engaged with industry right from day one in the program. So we have guest lecturers in every single class that we run. We have industry visits in the majority of classes that we run. So that industry connection, I think, is vital, and making sure that we're not just giving solutions, we're giving the students the tools. And I think that's the challenge moving forward, is just to make sure that graduates have the tools that they need for whatever situation that'll be. And I think that takes us right up to the end of time. So I'd just like to thank my panellists for an interesting discussion this afternoon, and wish you all a great conference over the next couple of days. Thank you.
Actually, I do have some sample curriculum. I was given some leaflets to bring from Abu Dhabi, and I will just put them on the front here if anybody wants to take one. And it's a good sample, it's a good sample of a hospitality curriculum. And I'll just lay them. There's about 12 of them. I'll just put them on the front here for you now. Okay?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And let's have our photo. And let's give them all another round of applause for that fantastic talk. Big smiles, everybody. That's the way. All right, everybody who is sitting there and enjoying these wonderful sessions, would you like to take a quick stand-up stretch? Yes. Say hi to somebody that you haven't met already. And do those 10 jumping jacks again. Not all at once, especially you, sir, that's right. All right, fantastic, everybody. Please take your seats when you've had a little stretch and a little move around. And next up, we have a fireside chat coming up. All right, let's take those seats. Okay, so we have the curriculum that was spoken about. We have them down here. If anybody would like to come and take one, more than welcome to before they all disappear. Okay, fantastic. So for our fireside chat, our next one is entitled EdTech Renaissance, Examining the Surge in Investment and its Impact on Educational Innovation. So first up, we'd like to put our hands together for our speakers. So we have our adjunct professor, Dr. M. Arakam C. Munayem, the Chief Executive Officer from Mega Jati Academy. Then we have Eric Bolinder, CEO and founder of Click Data AB, and Paul Bakanu, Global Channel Marketing Manager for Instructure. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. Right. Thank you again. We have together today Mr. Eric and also Mr. Paul. And today, I think this is the last session. Is it the last session? Second last. We got one more. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And thanks for the introduction from our MC. I'm Arkam from Malaysia. And it's very good again to be again in this stage today. This morning I got one session in the morning and that's one session in the evening. And this evening topic we're talking about examining the surge in investment impact on education innovation. We've got two main topics here today. One is regarding the investment, and secondly on the impact on the education. So let's start from our Mr. Eric and Mr. Paul. So I think maybe we need to introduce our speakers, so I'll let them to introduce themselves first, please. Introduce Eric.
Well, hello everyone. I hope you have enjoyed the day. My name is Eric Bolinder. I'm the founder and CEO of Click Data. Basically what we do is helping individuals, teams and organizations to enhance their business with AI, moving your venture, no matter what you do, into the age of AI is absolutely necessary for everyone, and we do that with a system called K3. I consider myself to be an AI evangelist. There's many doubts about AI, and you read a lot of it, but I'm basically consider myself as an AI evangelist. So please add me on LinkedIn and we continue the discussion.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Yeah, Paul.
Hello everyone, my name is Paul Bacano and I am the Global Channel Marketing Manager at Instructure. Instructure is the maker of Canvas. If you're in the education space, you probably have heard of Canvas or Instructure. And what we do is we want to, through our products, through our development, is to democratize education and to bring education to every student anywhere, any time, and any place. So what my role is to discuss about the impact that technology can have on education, how technology can democratize education, how technology can bring education to every student.
Thank you, Paul. So, Paul, you are working on infrastructure, education, infrastructure, instructor. Oh, sorry, instructor. And Eric is talking about AI, evangelists. Yeah?
We do have AI products, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And I used to work for an AI company before, so.
Yeah, all right. That's good, that's good. Okay, first of all, let's us to start on this kind of investment. We talk about investment in education is very important because it will differentiate the, level of ability that we can reach to what level of infrastructure that we can get from investment. So, is there any sample of kind of investment that may be available from your country? Because I'm talking about my country, for example, in Malaysia, we have few funds to be captured according to the investment when we're talking about the education. So, based on your experience, is there anything that we can talk about it in investment?
Well, the EdTech sector, which I represent, and the learning management systems has proven to be very good investments for companies who invest in them as clients, because the productivity gains is there, proven. Learning management system has been very a healthy business, growing with the rate of 15 to 80% a year for a long time, before there were any talks about AI. That has caused the investors to look at these markets. In my view, there hasn't been a player who has been revolutionized the business so far. There are, of course, many major players, but I would consider this as the Nokia moment. There were a lot of there were a lot of Nokia 3310s. Nokia sold 80 million units in 2006, 2005, and then something new came that we all are using one way or another. And we are exactly in the same position in the learning management system markets. We are a player in this market, even though we're very small. We are aiming to be disruptive in this game, because there will be a super change in education, and we all feel it, and we all are afraid of it. In the last panel, I don't know, the person who was sitting here said stay away from AI as long as possible, and he's right in the sense that we shouldn't enforce kids too early to technology. One example is you see a lot of parents giving iPhones as in the trolleys. It's like giving, in my view, it's like giving them cigarettes because there will be so much evidence that this is bad coming up. So in that sense, we are in 1963 when the first cancer reports came that it was bad to have cigarettes. I'm a little bit away from the subject. Coming back to the investment, the interest from funds and from institutions in learning management system has been there due to the fact that it's a very good, growing, wealthy business. With AI, it's also interesting because the player who is coming along and get this huge iPhone-ish moment will be huge. If you look at internet, we all here, all of us, use internet on hourly basis in our lives. If there's an exceptions, good for you, but most of us use internet on an hourly basis. And for the last 30 years, we have increasingly done so. In the AI world, we are in the 1996 world. Microsoft is there, and they were there in 1996, but there were no Amazon, there were no Wikipedia, there were no Google, there were no YouTube. In the AI world, we will see the next 30 years exactly the same as we have done for the last 30 years in our lives. And our kids, whether we like it or not, will use AI on an hourly basis for the rest of our lives in the coming next year. So education will, must, and shall approve and adopt. And this is, from the investment point of view, very interesting from the investor side. So they're joining into a sound business. Of course, there's a tons of learning management systems out there, but there has not been a major shift like Facebook did for social media, like Google did for search, etc. We also have seen the rise of a learning management system in COVID due to the fact that we were forced to use offline training or online training and not on-site training. Now we have shifted a little bit, so that growing curve went like this, and then it went back steady up. Now we're seeing hybrid solutions. But AI will have the most dramatic implications due to the fact that now we're giving students much more power than we ever have done. So in my view, as an AI evangelist and as an AI positive, futuristic person, I'm a future nostalgic. I think of the future like the nostalgic, it's going to be so much better. We see this AI tool will shift, so we must do, as the gentleman said in the previous discussion, turn teachers into coaches. So I repeat what he said, turn teachers into coaches. Because the power of learning is there. And if we use AI in the classroom, when there are several good examples of this, at the age that they can use the technology, not too early because they have to have all the other skills and so forth, as discussed in the previous panel debate. This will totally revolutionize the education. But as everything, technology goes very fast and social change is slower. And the most slow change business I know, and I've been working on it for 35 years, is education.
So innovation in that sense, we talk about AI is one of the game changer in education. And LMS is actually was there somewhere, I think maybe 10, 15 years ago, so available the LMS, where now LMS meet AI, something innovative towards that.
We're trying to be innovative. If we are the innovation force, other has to decide. But I think many of the players in this business needs to think like we do, and are doing this, right?
Correct. Paul, maybe you need to add. Paul? Oh yeah, please continue.
Yeah, so when it comes to disruptive technologies, if you look at the way that the IT business as a whole, which, believe it or not, or some people don't think that LMS is part of, but it is actually. We had IoT, we had big data, we had cloud, now we have AI. So when you look into businesses, they need to adapt, they need to cut through the fog, through the marketing slang a lot of times, and make the right decisions, make the ethical and the intelligent decisions that will actually benefit them as customers. And that's why even at Instructure we have adopted AI, but we wanted to make sure that it's in an ethical productive and helpful way for both the educators as well as the students. And when it comes to investment into LMS, yes, we had the pandemic, everyone freaked out. We had to have the business continuity, we had to have the social continuity and the educational continuity for all of our students. I live in Australia, we had 700 days of lockdown in Victoria, the state. Yeah, 700 days. Can you imagine that? Some people said we had two pandemics, one of COVID, one of depression. So we were forced to adopt it, and we were forced to adopt other technologies, including LMS, work from home, Zoom. Now, I think it will be detrimental if we're not going to continue riding that wave. I think it's going to be detrimental if we're going to be forcing going back to the old ways, because we can't. Especially when it comes to AI, like the gentleman said earlier, we have to be very careful about AI. And we shouldn't trust it because it could something bad could happen. No, I think we should embrace AI. I think we should teach, and us as technology companies as well as educational institutions, we need to embrace AI because it's the next big thing. Maybe I'm showing my age in here, but I remember I used to use Google for the first time to my assignments.
Yep.
But my teachers never accepted my references. They
From
were like,
Google?
you need to go to the library, pick up a physical book, conspect out of that book in order to finish your assignment. Even though it would take me about a week or two to actually do it, that I could do in maybe 3 to 4 hours,
Yeah.
right? So we are again at the cusp of the next revolution in technology. We need to embrace it, but we need to embrace it in an ethical and productive way.
And we don't really understand the implications yet. We can grasp it intellectually, but we have not, as a society, understood it at all. A few of us understand a little bit more than others, but as a society, we can't see ourselves 30 years from now, even though we can project how we saw each other from 1993 when World Wide Web saw light, and 30 years ahead where we are now. We can look back, but I urge everyone to imagine
Yeah,
and
we
to
can see that.
embrace. And my advice to everyone is learn about AI 50 minutes a day, and if you don't have 50 minutes a day, at least 50 minutes a week.
You need to
Yeah,
still
and there's videos on that, what have happened in the AI world, or whatever you are interested in the fields. Go to YouTube and educate yourself 50 minutes a day or 50 minutes a week, so you at least understand and start embracing the technology, and not just go to ChatGPT.
Or use it yourself, or talk to someone that knows about it. We're out there, you can talk to us right now, or I'm sure all of us have friends, have family members that either work in the field that have been using AI for a long time. I'm in marketing and I'm using ChatGPT all the time. I'm using a lot of other AI tools. And just as an example of AI that has revolutionized even my sector, okay, we used to have something which is called a media buyer, okay, ad buyer. That was a very well-paid job. Google came in, overnight disappeared. So it's not only that we are looking at AI as, you know, all the big fluffy words, digital transformation, the next big thing, but it's actually going to impact you. It's going to impact your students, because one of the biggest mistakes that we can do is, like you said, not think forward enough, think that it's not going to impact us, and we're going to be hit in the face, just like those people that lost their jobs overnight. So, as an educator, definitely learn more about AI. That will be my personal recommendation. Embrace AI and see how working together with the students, some of them may be even smarter than you when it comes to using AI, as we've all learned, right? But being prepared and being open-minded for a future is going to prepare all of us to adapt to it and even prosper in it.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, later I will ask, is there any question coming from the floor after my next question? Okay, Eric, maybe when everybody use AI, for example, I'm also using AI. Let's say making my proposal, sending to my client and tell everything through this generated AI. So the brain part behind it, where previously when we don't have this AI, before we go back to the investment letter, we know that original work will come from the intellectual of that person who submit the report previously. But now when we see the report, we can see this is AI generated report. So how we end to look into this kind of, is there still the intellectual part of the person who is submitting, or we just having a work exercise as an editor?
The moderation is the key in the education. You as a teacher, you as an educator, has to be the moderator for the students so they don't just swallow what's the AI produce. That was the first thing I saw when I was stunned by the fantastic tool ChatGPT. I was stunned first time I saw ChatGPT. And then after 50 minutes, I noted 14 things I wanted to improve, so I improved it into our system. And the moderation and ability to directly edit and mark every reply as accepted, check this up, toxic or fiction. Fiction is fantastic when you want ChatGPT to write a business contract, because you want the fantasy of the system to give you this. But if you really want to fact check things, sometimes it's like a Russian general coming to Putin and said, how is it going on the front? Good.
Right.
And that's so you need to have a tool to moderate.
This is a
you can go to chat.k3.io and we explain that in that chat.k3.io. But the point from an education point of view, moderation is the key, and you have to let the students use ChatGPT and these tools to learn, but when you test them, use pen and pencil, because otherwise the digital tools will have a lot of cheating. So when you really need to test that the knowledge is here and not in the Google or in the cloud, you need to have paper and pen. And that's not me saying it. It's the evidence of people using this ChatGPT in the classroom on a daily basis. And his name is Thomas Sowell. No, not Thomas Sowell. Simmer. And a guy in Gothenburg, Sweden, who has done this for high 7th to 9th classes, 13 to 15 years old, for 2 years now, and he's traveling around Sweden and explain his experience, because he was very early in this. And I'm sure there is a lot of entrepreneurs, enthusiasts of AI in your countries as well, doing the same thing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Paul, how about that? Things like how we want to humanizing the ChatGPT, so that it's not just like robotic response. We go back to our intellectual to blend the answer, not straight away. Moderation is one thing, but sometimes we cannot differentiate between the moderated one and also the original produced by the ChatGPT.
In my opinion, I think ChatGPT is just a tool, like any other one. That's why, again, let's embrace it. Let's learn how to best use it. And I think as educators, one of the things that we as humans can set us up for success, and you learn this mostly in school, hopefully, is critical thinking. Critical analyzing a particular topic, understanding it thoroughly, and us as educators, it's a pleasure to see that your students not only can regurgitate stuff, right? Because that's where AI can come in. Just write me in 2 paragraphs an answer to this question or whatever, and ChatGPT can do it. However, critically analyze this and give me your personal reasoning within 2 paragraphs of why you've made a certain decision, whether it's right or wrong. I think that can set us up and that can set us as educators better for success and our students a lot better, because that will then help them further up in life, not only by making better decisions, but also it will de-incentivize them by thinking that ChatGPT is a tool for cheating.
Okay, then.
I have a metaphor. AI is the horse. You have to be the rider and have reins on it.
Yep. All right, thank you so much. Is there any question from the floor, please? If there are any question to ask our panelists. And meanwhile, while waiting, maybe after this, our topic is examining the surge in investment. So investment must, sometimes we look into the capacity of the person to invest, to get the good education, for example. And of course, we talk about the impact of education innovation. Clearly said that maybe for those people who are having sufficient investment, so they will get a good education. But for those who are not there, so they might be get not that, power education. So we need to stress out of this topic. Now, surge in investment and impact of education innovation, how we want to, leverage between the, the person who having this ability to pay for the investment and person doesn't have this ability to subscribe of this kind of infrastructure in future, so that they are they also will become left out in the education system or innovation in education system. Paul, Eric or Paul?
Well, I don't 100% think I understand the full question, but the AI helps the individual tremendously. It's like putting a tutor into hands of every student. The teacher I was talking about from Gothenburg, he says that my stress level as a teacher has gone down because suddenly I have 30 assistants to 30 of my students because they have someone they can interact with and learn from. And let that sink in for a moment. Then suddenly it's not a threat, it's a super helpful tool for teachers. And once the teacher as a community understand this, the resistance will not maybe switch 180 degrees, but it will change, and there will be so many examples of good use of AI in schools. And now we are celebrating this week the 2-year anniversary of ChatGPT, who was released on November 30th, 2022, right? So I'm sure a year ago your opinion here was different from what it is today, and you constantly develop your own opinion and usage of it in the context of where you are in your profession, right? I don't know if that was the answer on your question. But
Paul, maybe you can get it.
I'll let Paul answer the question.
I think something that we're really passionate, for example, at Canvas, like I mentioned earlier, is to bring education to every student everywhere in the world. And that, I think, is the most important role of technology, is to empower the students, to bring them the technology. I don't know if you've seen on YouTube, there was a student somewhere in Africa with no formal education. He built, using YouTube, power mills, like this windmill, that brought electricity to his village. Now think about that. What if we all come together and we use technology such as an LMS, such as platforms, online platforms? Because I'll tell you another thing. For example, in India, right? in the Western world, we started off landlines and we installed the technology, and it was such a pain to install all of the cabling and infrastructure. India and other countries, mobile phones, instant communication, instant access to the internet, instant access to the world knowledge. So if we take a step back, us as technology providers is to enhance that, to bring the power of education. And mind you, some of these countries, they have the youngest population, and the growth of population of planet Earth is actually happening in these countries. Why are we wasting all of this potential when we can actually use technology to bring every student up to speed?
That is a fantastic thing when you leverage, you have leverage out the borders, the boundaries, the borders to higher education and to information. So internet has revolutionized our access to information. But in many countries in Africa, they still have the mentality of being behind the West. But on the technical side, they're not. Since the internet penetration has gone up tremendously, and the young generation use the phone all the time, etc., etc. It's a mindset only right now. It's not the technology, as you so elegantly spoke about when the technology was there. We see so much productivity in countries like Nigeria, in countries in Egypt, where I have my team since 12 years. And in many other countries that you wouldn't heard of when I was in school, that was in the near of being technology advanced. And we remember when China started to come along and say, well, they are low-end people, they are not going to hurt us, and we sat there on our high horses, and now they have, as Tim Cook said on Apple, if you search for in US, there might be two applicants for this high-end world, but while we go to Shanghai in China, there's hundreds and thousands with the same qualifications. So yeah, we are in a fantastic phase in human mankind, when everyone has the ability to be anything due to the technology with internet and AI, and we have a fantastic, the most amazing tool ever built for education, and we should stand up and say, thanks. Of course, we should be cautious as you should hang on, wait a minute. Do we really need this? Is this good? Yeah, but for me, the positive sides in education is so far greater than the negative sides. But cautious and testing and pivoting. If this doesn't work, let's try the other one.
Actually, to open up the new, new vision on how we see the education in current and the future as well. So again, we do have any question from the floor. Is there any? Please, sir. Please, sir. All right.
Deal with AI in education. How are teachers going to know if they, of course they're going to be using it. You've got to accept that they're going to use it and show them how to use it critically. So you can build in, like you do on a doctoral viva. You don't know they've written the thesis until you meet them and you have a conversation with them and you ask open questions. That's how you know that they've learnt and mitigated some form of critical learning and application from whatever it is they've pulled out of the ether. That's how you do it. You change your grading rubric. You change your method of, I'm not going to say teaching, but you change your method of relationship with the client, with the student. That's the only way you can do it. And it's a very effective way of working. And you're right, 30% at least down. If you work like that, your stress levels drop enormously. Because the onus then is on working groups with the students who are working autonomously in communities of learning and loving it. Anyway, I just wanted to say
Yes, absolutely. So again, going back to all the different waves of technological revolution that we've seen, and it's always been about change management, okay? And we as humans, we love doing things over and over the same. However, it's either through political, economical, demographic, different factors that will anyway push us forward, whether we like it or not. So that's why, again, let's embrace it, let's work together. And it's always been a partnership. One of the things that people forget is that it's a partnership. Technology companies work with their clients, work with government organizations, and around, again, technology companies work with the government organizations that then get impacted by the customers who then talk to the government. It's not a one-way street that you have, okay, you need to implement this. No, it's a collaboration, and through collaboration we will all grow better. One example from our company is we use AI to help both the student as well as the educator. Make it easier to create quizzes. There you go. Look at the analytics of your students and find out where that particular student is on a trajectory to, you know, they're not grasping a particular part of the course with predictive analytics, right?
Talking about quizzes, if you go to video2quiz.com, you can take a video link from YouTube or upload a video that you have a lecture or a Zoom call. You have 2 bars. How many questions, how hard, your email, done. It's a 30-second efforts that previously took 3 hours, 3 days, or how long did it how many of you have done a quiz for a long thing? It's a huge time effort saving in that sense. So small things like this enhance the power of the educators. So when we launched this in May 2023, I was very happy to be absolutely in the frontier of the development, and knowing that in 2 weeks something else is better, but it's still a very effective tool. You can have any language, so you can upload an Arabic or Spanish or Arabic, Swedish, English, and get a quiz in a beautiful PDF. Comes in a mail when the AI system has done it. It sometimes takes half an hour or an hour, but that's it.
Yeah. Okay, sir.
Yeah, quick question, and thank you all for being here. Appreciate the knowledge. So the title on this is The Surge in Investment and the Impact on Educational Innovation. Investors who invest in these technologies are interested in return on investment, obviously a financial return, whereas education is a little bit more, we look at that as a little bit more pure, especially in this particular environment of educators. Any risk or caveats that any of you would give to that when we have the financial end, big investors coming in, other than Microsoft and et cetera, et cetera. Any cautions you would give to that as we move along, trying to keep educational purity, but mixing investment with that as well?
So, as any business that wants to survive, right? Whether you're an education institution, you're a technology company, or whatever you do, is ultimately the customer. If you put the customer at the forefront, it's impossible to fail. Because, like I said earlier, it's a working progress, and we're all growing together. Venture capitalists invest in technology companies because they also do their own research, knowing that their customer wants to buy this. The government obviously hates monopolies. That's why they're trying to break up Google now, right? So at the end of the day, it's a collaborative piece, and investors love making money, right? And how do they make money is to invest in companies that have the ethical standards, that they have a product that's viable, that's sellable, that is actually being able to produce the pitch deck result that they came to those venture capitalists with. So ultimately, I think it's in all of our best interests to collaborate together and to work together in whatever technology it is. Today it can be AI, but BYD and Tesla already are using humanoid robots. We're already talking about full self-driving cars. So other industries are being completely reinvented. How do we as educators learn about those future challenges that our own students are going to face?
Thank you. Wait, after that, continue.
Was that the answer of your question? Because I had the feeling that you had some concerns about the integrity of the education sector versus the need for profit from investors. Or I really... So I don't need to answer that. That's right.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
After all, we need to be balanced. Yeah? So when things getting easier for the educators, not easier. Basically, being helped by this kind of assistance through AI and whatnot, and the assessment that we made to our students sometimes also need to be at par and also comes together with that kind of transforming for innovation of education. So how we can ensure the quality of the students based on that kind of assessment and also the approach that we made in the technology, and we expect the results coming back to us to measure it and to come out, this is the quality student, this is less quality, things like that. Is it possible?
That is a very relevant and very important question. And coming back to the moderators and the coaching, this is the role of the teacher to make sure that the quality is there from the AI, and not just swallow everything that it produces, because it's a little bit tricky, you know. It goes somewhere and it suddenly, what? this is not true. So you also have to know things in order to correct things. And why I choose education as my passion for the last 3 decades is because the power of teaching, to see the ahas in the students, and to see when the light goes up and when you connect the dots as coaching or teaching is fantastic. Even though I've been starting my business with the video tutorials back in the days where we have plastic band you put on fast forward with mechanics. That aha moment is, I think, what drives most of us in here to see the light when a student understands things, and when you connect yourself, and when you learn things yourself, because we learn everything on an hourly basis, due to the fact that the information is just coming into our heads in the speed of light that we use this smartphones. Well, coming back to I think what Paul was mentioning before, the Nokia moment or the Kodak moment, when they didn't adapt, when Kodak didn't adapt the digital technology, they failed as a business. When Nokia didn't adapt the smartphone, they failed as a business, etc., etc. We've seen this, and I can tell you, every company on the earth needs to think about themselves as a blockbuster. Should have thought about themselves when Netflix came along, right? So, having that said,
and being an educator,
the reality even for education.
Yeah, for the educators too needs to learn a lot to get familiarized with all these kind of innovation and technologies. Sometimes they refuse to do that.
There's AI tools to check out not only ChatGPT. Now you can choose anything. So it's like Trivago of of learning LLMS. Coming to the end of it, the companies are very afraid of letting internal information leak out to the big companies like OpenAI. So they want the power of AI, but they don't want AI to the information leak out. And it's the same in the educational industry as well. They don't want to have everything out there in order for them to survive as well, to be unique and in the position to their clients, the students.
So, Paul, maybe one before we end the session, maybe we've got one more question coming from the floor later after I ask Paul about this question. Investment again needs to come together with capital. We talk about money, and that's always become as challenges to either a country or a person to get a good education. So how we can overcome this? Is there any possibility that our education system, this comes with cost as well. We need to pay for the tuition fees and all the assessment fees and certification fees. How we look into the future in terms of this kind of funding? Is there any possible way to leverage it into affordable prices?
Yeah, look, one thing that we should all know, because we're on the education sector, we're talking about education 3.0 at the moment. What that means is that we're done with the traditional learner, okay? Where you go to high school, university, boom, there you go, there's your job, 30, 40 years, you're sitting at the same desk, and that's it, you retire, it's gone. We need to adapt, we need to learn that this is the new education. We're talking about the non-traditional student, okay? And what I mean by that is you have students that started the university, dropped out, did some outside of university experience, came back. While they were outside, they also did a lot of Coursera's, a lot of Udemy's, a lot of Google certified courses. That I'm a marketer, that's what I'm talking. There's a lot of other courses out there, right? So then they probably got their bachelor's degree, or you have others, such as, look, professional education, such as doctors. Every year they need to participate in a certain number of seminars, read books and other material, or complete short courses in order to even keep their qualification. So when we're talking about investment, first of all, we need to realize what the current situation is. Number two, we need to invest in everything from micro credentials, micro courses, and to deliver within the infrastructure that we have at the moment, to then cater for them as well as for the future. And I'll finish up with an example. So when I finished my marketing degree, I couldn't get a job. I had to go back, take a lot of different courses, small courses, certifications, and get myself trained up and get the experience that I needed to then get hired.
Just very short. When Saudi Arabia developed their AI strategy, and I've been involved in this process a bit, they put the workforce and the students. It's their job to educate themselves. It's not coming from top down. It's on their behalf, but they will provide the tools and to use AI on an hourly basis is stated in their strategy. And I've just read the Swedish strategy. I haven't read it yet. It came out 2 days before I flew here, 138 pages long. So on the national level, you will see in your countries what the government and the politicians are focusing much more than they have. Some countries are ahead here. Singapore, UAE, Saudi Arabia, US to some degrees, but not on a level in schools. Let's see what the new administration will come up with. But people the political system must also enforce so that the education system are supported by the political parties using this technology. And that has not happened in many countries, and it must, because it just like the blockbuster moment for companies, it will be the blockbuster moment for countries.
So there is actually a policy that we are expecting from the government to look into this kind of investment for the
It's the
education.
investment for the future,
Yeah.
for the countries and society to enjoy the fruits that AI will produce.
Thank you so much. I think that's all from our side, Eric and Paul. And again, from Education 2.0, we'd like to thank everybody for this session, and also all these members from the floors, and also who asked the question for us just now. So we end up this at that point. Okay, thank you so much again, and we shall meet again maybe in the next Education 2.0. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful talk. And moving right along to our last panel discussion for today. So this panel discussion is entitled Beyond the Classroom Walls, Maker Learning in Community and Extracurricular Programs. Now, this panel will explore how after-school programs and community-driven initiatives are empowering students to learn by doing. From robotics clubs to art studios, this session uncovers how these opportunities shape learners into innovators. So first of all, we're going to welcome up our moderator up onto the stage. So Teja Kuluru, founder of Virtual Guru Online Learning. Let's put our hands together for our moderator. Then our panelists for this session, Benjamin Joel Brevenaria, Head of Nursing Department at College of Applied Medical Sciences, King Faisal University. Mayra Abasto Vega, Executive Director and Lead Teacher at Isabella and Ferdinand Academia de Español. Srilakshmi Reddy, Founder and Director at Keystone International School and Keystone Center for Innovation and Teacher Education. Ashima Dawan, Program Director of Studies and Assistant Professor, Creative Industries Management at Heriot-Watt University in Dubai. And Dr. Dipali Gupta, Founder and MD at iCorpolites. Please, let's welcome up our moderator and panelists up onto the stage.
All right, good evening, everyone. I know it's been a long day, a long, exciting day, I presume. I've been here for a few panels, and I think it's been fabulous, some great insights. So this one, I'm told, is the last of the panel for the day. So I'm sure most of you are tired, but welcome to this, where we're talking about how we can go beyond the classroom walls. And if you've been here since morning, you probably have heard a lot of people talk about AI, technology, and how tech is taking over schools and early education. But with all of this happening, we have a lovely panel here to talk about how some of those important skills or life skills that we talk about, like I travel around the world coaching leaders in over 75 organizations. And what are the topics I'm coaching these leaders on? Listening skills, empathy, trusting people. These are some of the things that probably should have been taught at home at best or schools, right? So what can we do in the world of AI and technology to take learning beyond the classroom is what will perhaps talk about today. So I want to go to you, Ashima, first. And I know you do some fabulous work here in Dubai. What is maker learning according to you, and how does these communities work?
Thanks a lot, Teja. I'm going to quote Professor Lawrence if he's here somewhere. Lawrence. I think it's all going to be about shifting and flipping the classroom. That's point one. Point two, making sure that your learners are able to think. And that's the most important thing. Amidst AI and robotics and VR and technology, we have a lot that can take care of menial work and the admin work. I think a maker learner is definitely going to be someone over here, perhaps all of us, who can just make sure that we are able to make ourselves learners first. If we are able to empathize, put ourselves into the shoes of a learner, we will be able to make a learner. That's what I think is a maker learner.
Absolutely. I think taking learning beyond the classroom where they're connecting with each other. And I know talking about taking learning beyond the classroom, Dr. Dipali, I know you run a lot of communities with something fascinating like Pilates. What are your thoughts? How do you think a maker learning community is important for children today beyond the classroom?
Thank you for this question, Teja. I believe when you're talking about great learning environment, it is very important to involve both the left brain and the right brain. The right brain is responsible for your emotional connection and your innovation and creativity. And we are here focusing only on the left brain. That is your structured thinking, your steps, your processes, your logical reasoning, right? And are we fair over here? Are we? I don't think so. We should involve our both hemisphere, that is your right and the left. And that's where I'm coming from when I say that we need an involvement of the entire brain. And not only that, we need all the 5 senses. I'm sure we can't involve our smell and taste, but then the other senses needs to be involved so that we can create a transformative learning experience, an experience which can last longer. Research suggests if you do a 2D training, the training that only activates your left brain, it retains only 20 to 30%. But then when you activate and when you involve your students into a lived experience where there is a greater sense of felt, deeper sense, where they are involved with their entire brain and all the 5 senses, where they are able to create, they are able to flow, they are able to innovate, that's where they get the right stage to learn it fully, so that they can retain it to a level wherein, they can apply it to any space. Because why do we learn? We learn to apply what we have learned to our real life world, right? We don't just learn to keep it to ourselves. So it's very important that it's high time that we make learning interesting in terms of colorful flip charts, in terms of lived experience, where we are having people involved practically into what they are learning. That's where, successful stages are, I believe. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. I think your energy is infectious already. But I hear you. So it's about involving people, it's about activities. I know, Benjamin, you do a lot of work in Saudi Arabia as well with respect to education. What has been your experience of taking learning beyond the classroom in terms of activities, communities? How is it different for you?
Thank you for that question. Since I am currently working in a service profession, which is in healthcare, and in the nursing school especially, we are a very service-oriented profession. There are many multi-dimensional ways on how to really think beyond on how are you going to create that makerspace. Because even if I've known a lot of educational theories or models, but when I was really reading about this maker learning, it seems that it's a synthesized, authenticity-wise approach on a learner on how that person will think outside of the box within the domain of what is important to that person and what are the things that that person care about. So particularly in the nursing field, in the nursing profession, I'll just give an example. If we are really wanting to develop the leadership skills, let's say, of the learners, I mean, there are many opportunities on how to do that outside. Like, it can be a maker space of really letting the students to engage in different types of presentation, like the simple Pecha Kucha presentation, like involving pictures that are important to them, that matters to them, and just by that simple 20 slides presentation with 20 pictures that are important to them or something that resonates within their life, for example, it can actually activate many different skill sets. Aside from presentation, public speaking, creative thinking, organization of thoughts, and probably creating a series of pictures that creates into a cohesive form of stories. So there are so many. I mean, probably another one, because we are in service, is actually service learning. And just like the concept of this maker space, if we ask the students, for example, what are your advocacies? Because typically, when you are developing learners or nursing students, we are also developing future leaders and future nurse leaders. And if you really want to leverage their knowledge and skills in many different aspects, it can be in terms of advocacy, it can be in terms of collaboration, it can be, as I mentioned a while ago, leadership. And if we talk about what's the trend now, I mean, not only in nursing, but in many different professions, is actually our involvement in sustainable development goals. So how can you activate that maker space for them to think of an advocacy that matters for them? So it's open. It's an open space. What matters to me as a learner? If what matters to me is serving vulnerable populations, so definitely I will be engaged in opportunities outside, but through service learning, through activities like, for example, Meals on Wheels, or maybe just like with our students, because one of the curricular threads from my experience in our program is actually service. So the students, when you gave them an opportunity to select on what matters to them, like through their thinking, open-minded thinking outside of the box, and then, for example, Doctor, we want to do something that is related to the environment, for example. So just by doing that, they can do so many things through collaboration. For example, collaborating with the municipality. And the municipality have opportunities. It can be in a form of funding. It can be in a form of, how can I say it, giving you resources, such as giving you seedlings and a place for you to plant the trees.
So essentially what you're saying, Benjamin, is instead of just looking at the curriculum and what needs to be completed, you are creating maker spaces of giving them practical experience,
Yes.
going out there, connecting with people, and that too with a purpose.
Yes.
Which could be environment, could be charity.
Yes.
And
So many things.
what I loved about what you said is that in turn, the purpose may be environment, but in that process, they're actually learning a lot more skills, right? Talking about involving and creating maker spaces, right? One of the things that I somehow believe is spoken less about is the teachers themselves. AI has come in and everybody talks about how do we make this a learner-centric technology. What about teachers? Because as I travel around the world, I see teachers often, if not a decade, at least 5 years behind what's happening. So I know, Sri Lakshmi, you run communities for teachers, creating these spaces. So how is Maker community helpful to teachers, you think, not just students?
Good evening, everyone. I'm sure you're all so engrossed in your mobiles, your end of the day, you're all really tired listening to a lot of conversations. But can you just take a second to look around this room? All of you, just take a look around this room. If you were sitting in this room 60 years ago, I'm sure you agree with me if I say that we wouldn't have seen a lot of things that we see today. It could be the wireless microphone, it could be the LED lights, or anything that you see around now is an innovation. It is part of, the maker's process. It is part of someone thinking that, okay, let me reinvent, let me innovate. So it's part of our life. That's one thing that we need to accept. Having said that, now we're talking about enabling children. Now who should do that? End of the day, it's not, the leaders who are getting into the classroom, it's the teacher who's getting into the classroom. We strongly believe that, at our, teacher training center, that anyone who needs to teach, the students has to go through the experience themselves. They are the students. They need to, go through the same learning that they are expecting their children, are going through. For example, at our school, we asked our children to get into the community, whatever that community is, in your own country, wherever you belong. So I'm sure you're all familiar. In India, we have weavers, right, who weave clothes, fabric, and we sent all our children to this weavers community. And they just spent their time there and identified so many problems that they could solve. So they came back to the school and they said, I really want to solve the problem where the weaver is sitting for 5 hours continuously and where the chair is not comfortable. I want to make a more ergonomic chair. Now, in that process, I'm learning furniture design, I'm learning, material, I'm learning so many things integrated. But am I expecting a great, IKEA-made product out of this student? Not really. You're just expecting this kid to go through the journey of a maker. And how do you do that? Is the teacher, already a designer who's worked in an architecture firm? No. This is a teacher who's also learning along with the student. So they're all learning together. So all that we need to do is create that environment where the teachers and the students come together and provide them the tools, the strategies, in a more simplified manner so that they can learn together while they're actually making something, and it has to be an experience. Anything that's not experienced can't be applied. So that's one way to do it.
It's interesting.
I'm going to
go ahead.
add on to her point. What she's typically talking of is a very, very interesting process in design thinking, and we call that as body storming. I'm not sure if anyone has heard of that, or ethnography, for example. So she's speaking of having real life experiences. So in design thinking, when I'm teaching my students, or should I use the word when I'm coaching or mentoring my students, I never tell them to focus on the solution. That's the first thing I tell them. Do not think of the solution. Let the solution evolve. You think of the problem. And that's exactly, there's a similar case that I'd like to share. There's some of our students who came in and then they said that we really want to solve the problem of the Talabat drivers here in UAE. It's so hot. Poor thing, they're sweating. Nobody listens to them. They're just standing at your door. They give away a delivery and that's all. I said, is that even a problem? First, gets to the problem. And that's where body storming and ethnography and design thinking begins. We allow the students to get out, speak to a ton of Talabat drivers, and then they come back making videos and audio-video clippings, sketches, and prototypes. Eventually, by the time they've come to the second week of ideation, they've realized that, oops, professor, that was not even the problem. The problem was Talabat drivers have nothing to do with the heat. They don't get enough social recognition and respect. I said, voila. That's a problem statement. Now the designer or the maker learner's job begins. The question is not the solution, it's not the process, it's not the system. That all comes together later. It's secondary. Primary, is that even a problem? Are you equipped enough to first understand and identify a problem and a real problem that can make a change?
Absolutely, and I think it is this focus of redirecting students back into something that's important. Because the way I look at how we've transitioned as humanity, we were always seekers. Somewhere in the early 70s, or maybe even with the Industrial Revolution, we've become solution finders. today, what I'm glad AI is doing is bringing us back to being seekers. Because even on ChatGPT, it's not as much about the answer, but how effectively can you ask the question to ChatGPT that makes it more relevant. So today, I think AI, in a way, is taking us back to being seekers. But I want to bring in Myra here. Thank you for patiently waiting. We're talking about these partnerships. We're talking about how you can, Sri Lakshmi had a great example of how she took the students to Weavers. Right? But do you think there is a benefit in schools interacting with other communities? Or should schools be creating their own? What are your thoughts?
Thank you for your question. Thank you for my panel, which is great. So I think that this beyond the class, first of all, is really important, especially with languages and culture. I heard about AIs, I heard about technology. Of course we need it. But in terms of activities and community, we need to create a space, especially for the kids, to be involved. Languages come with this community, speaking, playing, and even for adults. So in my experience, I have almost 480 kids around Washington, D.C., Virginia, Maryland. And I noticed that when they are beyond the school, because we have like after schools, they're so excited to be with their friends that you cannot imagine, especially after the pandemic. So we need that. We need technology, we need instructions, but also we need, as a teacher, to coach them how to act with others and how to be involved in that community. In terms of language, French, Spanish, or whatever language we want to say, we need that. We need to create this environment. It's really essential for the kids especially.
I love that. In fact, I was talking to somebody who runs this international school in India. And I really like the way he put this together. He said, I work with AI and AI. I'm like, what's the second AI? So he says, I use artificial intelligence to make my operations better, my transactions effective, my teachers empowered, and I use ancient intelligence, the other AI, to go back to the traditional way of teaching kids, which is the touch, feel, the kinesthetic, the WAC that we keep talking about. So it's brilliant how you bring in that as well, Myra, in terms of the connect that you're talking between students and teachers. Ashima, because ever since you said Talabat and your example, I'm just curious now to come back to that. How do you look, this is a fast-paced world. Parents are constantly telling kids that they should focus on a certificate, a degree, a job, and salary, and settling down in life. And so how do you therefore bring in parents to encourage their, because 50% or maybe 60% of what a child is focusing on in education also comes from home. In fact, they say the world's best university is the dinner table at home. Right?
So true.
So how do you encourage students to go beyond just the curriculum, beyond the degrees, beyond the jobs, and focus on these life skills? How are you doing that with your role and what you do here in Dubai?
Such a brilliant question. I'm not a parent yet, and I hope to have a lovely child one day. A naughty one, I must say. Parents are so important. And Sri Lakshmi, you mentioned that who are the ones who are there in the classroom? It's us, it's the educators. Oh, but let's not forget that they're 80% of their times with us, but the rest of the times are back at home, the dinner table, or that could be, sitting with mama, or listening to a lullaby, or watching TV with papa. I'm going to come in points because professors, occupational hazards, we speak in points. Point number 1, 2, and 3. Okay, point number 1. Parents, observe. That's very important. Do not chart out a map up until, well, if I may sound conservative, until the 10th grade. Let them dive into the mathematics and the biology and the sociology and history, geography. Let them get their basics and fundamentals right. Point number 2. Talk to them about everything that's happening on the news channel. I mean, what's happening in Canada, or what's happening in America, what's happening down in Brazil, what's happening in India. I think those conversations are really going to take them ahead. The more aware they are, the better they'll be able to hold conversations with the right people. Third, send them to tuitions if they require, but I think send them to karate, send them to judo, send them to kickboxing.
Or Pilates.
Yeah, Pilates. Well, oh yeah, Pilates. We've got that. That's going to be very important, is because that alignment is going to allow them to build discipline, show up. That's very important. Show up anywhere. Let them commit to things, but that's what they're passionate about. The fourth thing that what I can say is, as a professor, what we do is we speak to parents. We ask them what are their aspirations, what do they want to see their child become. And just this morning, when a lot of people out there were saying, oh Ashima, you're so late to the conference, what happened? I was speaking to a parent, and the parent asked me, I want my child to become something in aviation. I see so much money there. I see so much focus and so much. I'm like, oh, okay, money and focus and success. Does your child want to be there in aviation? And I looked at him and he was like, I actually want to become a designer for interiors, and I want to be related to doing something in yachts. And I looked back at the parent. I was like, so, did you know that your son is passionate about yachts? I think observing and listening. It's going to be everything from what they're watching on Netflix, what they're doing on Instagram, what posts they're liking. Be a part of your child's life. And we're dealing with Gen Zs. I mean, by the time I think I have a child, I don't really think so my child's going to call me mama. He's like, ma, hey, Ash. Probably. You never know. So very important, I think, as a parent, talking, observing, and being a part of their life. 3 very, very important things.
Awesome. I love that. In
Amazing.
fact, I remember one of my friend's young 5-year-old daughter once told me, Teja, I'm not a maths person. And in my head, I'm thinking, you're not even a full person yet, right? But you're so clear already that you're not. But do parents notice? I hear.
Absolutely.
Benjamin, you wanted to say something to that.
No, I'm just really amazed with those powerful statements, because how I wish, I mean, a lot of parents can hear that, because since we're talking about that maker space, it needs to start also from the home with the parents, and really giving an opportunity for the kid or for the child to have the opportunity to make decisions or to express themselves, what they want. So it kind of resonated with me, actually, on a personal level. That's why I really appreciate
Thanks.
that statement.
I think a lot of us are speaking out of our personal experience, right?
Absolutely. In fact,
May I add an example to that? So there is this student who's come out of Ivy League schools, who's come out of international school, who's gone through a great journey of, academics. And this is a real-time person. I just can't take the person's name though. So he's applied, for the job. He's worked briefly, with, a software company, and then he's applied at Apple with 5 years of experience and a great academic, performance, from these schools. So at the interview, this is at Apple company. The one question that this, person has faced at, can you tell us something creative that you have done in the last 10 years? Okay, last 4 years, maybe I can quote based from, the companies that I worked at. But the question was 10 years. So that means 5 years, when I was at school, when I was at college, what did I do? Something creative. I can't show my academic score for being creative. I need to actually do something. And that's where I feel the need for, the parents and the students to understand. Think what is needed after 12th, not what is needed while I'm in, 12th, what is needed while I'm in school. Always understanding what's happening in the ecosystem outside of schools and colleges will, encourage the schools and parents to connect and also to understand the need for community being part of education systems.
Absolutely, because kids follow their parents. They get influenced by them, and I think that focus, if they keep focusing on, okay, how much did you get in the score to, in the test today, the kid's obviously going to be focusing on the exams, not really holistic. I love that. So, talking about parents, communities, students, Myra, I'd like to come to you. How do you measure success for all of this? When do you know a community or an initiative that you've launched is even successful? Is there already some criteria that can help perhaps another school to pick it up? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm thinking about all the examples that I can just tell the audience, and it's really hard to have the whole community involved because we have different objectives, different things that, different activities, different thoughts. So we started, in my experience, we started with a little community, and then little by little, we be expanded, not because of the social medias, it's because of us. They love to be in the school, they're part of the school, and when I talk with the parents, I said, we need time. Time is our best friend. Because when I arrived, they said, okay, there's 1 week. My kids speak Spanish, and I was looking at him and said, how? I've been learning French for 14 years, and I'm still learning. So a language is not something that you have a chip in your head and you have already the results. And I think we need to understand and we need to think about that. All this technology they're so fast that I'm afraid, kids are afraid, everybody's afraid, and we need to have a process to start it, to think about it. So a community is difficult. So create a community will take time, especially after the pandemic, and we had a blast during those years that we can have more than 480 students because we were in shock after COVID, the kids were anxious, so it was a big transition for us. But I think the way that we need to think is time. We need to have the time for good results.
Love that response. Thank you. Time, oh my God. That probably is the right answer for so many things in our life, including our relationships. But Ashima, I know you do quite a lot of work in this field as well. And I know you wanted to say something as well.
I'm by nature a very outcome-oriented person. For me, I need to calculate, I need to measure, I need to know the outcome. And that, I think, just comes with the profession and the way we're built. I was in Kenya for a vacation about a year back, and there was a young couple, and they had a child. And I was much impressed because while I was jumping around like a child, looking outside, at the live hunt and looking at the lions and the tigers and the zebras, I couldn't help but notice this child sitting right next to me, and he was on his mobile phone looking at things that looked like graphs and charts, and they kept changing. And I just asked him that, hey, what are you looking at? I'm into stocks. Hold on there. Stocks, how old are you? I'm in the 7th grade. Okay. What I really appreciate about the child was not about the fact that the child told me that, by the time I'm 18, I'm going to buy a house for myself. I've already invested these many dirhams in this stock. Was the ability of the child to take the conversation, author it, with authority, command it, and convince you. Now, there's a beautiful dialogue happening between a 40-year-old woman and a child is in the 7th grade telling me that this is how I am going to do. So measurement is not about if you've achieved it or not. It's the ability, as what you've asked very correctly, to directly answer that is, if somebody has been able to plan it, work on it, okay, come up with a timetable, come up with a blueprint. I think that's measurement of success. If my child is able to do that, and if I've been able to impart that knowledge and that ability, I think we've been able to achieve something, because we know that there's somebody young enough able to make a blueprint of his life and work towards it, because that's what's going to be his driving motive. I think it's a story in itself, right? Just to be able to just hold that conversation, author it, with authority, command it, and tell it. I mean, it just shows the child's or the person's thought process.
I love that. In fact, that reminds me, a few years ago, this was almost 8 years ago, we did a project for Microsoft in India. This was targeted at students at the +2 grade. So what they did is Microsoft invested in training these students in Microsoft technologies, enthusiastic, interested students. And they gave them a project which had no outcome. They said, go into the community and it's not really a target. They said your impact, they focused on impact rather than a monetary result. And they said, Now that you know this technology, why don't you go find 5 small and medium businesses and digitally transform their business? If you need the server space, we'll give it to you for free. If you need tech, we'll give it to you for free. We called it Project Paras. Paras is, in the Indian context, anything that you touch turns into gold, the Midas touch that we talk about. Incredibly, they converted about 16 dying handicrafts in South India and parts of West of India, transformed them and created e-commerce spaces for them. These are kids I'm talking about. And one of the art, it's called Bidri Art, it's a dying art farm. There are only about 30 people who can do that in India right now. They now are a multi-million-dollar business because they're selling across the globe, and we're talking about kids. But what essentially Microsoft did after that is it said, now you have these skills. Now this is a live project certificate, right? So this is truly what is skill development, you know, and that's all done through student community. So it's brilliant what communities can achieve if they're coming in together, and I think that's my next question. And since Benjamin, you said you're focused on services and how can corporate companies help? And because parents want their kids to settle down well, and that seems to be the eventual target. You can't fight that. It's a natural inclination for parents, I guess. Schools probably would want to create success for their students as well. Where do you see the most critical other element, the corporates, coming into this and being a part of maker communities like probably what Microsoft did in India? What are your thoughts on that?
Mention about corporate, but from my experience, more on non-profit, but it depends. In a city setting, collaborations can be, how can I say it, not just like what I mentioned, it depends, but there are so many opportunities. For example, if you want like private organizations or businesses, for example, to be involved, of course it's very important, but number one factor is funding, right? So from my experience in my organization, we were funded like a huge amount of money just recently, but it is really geared into the direction of technology. And since one of the factors that we leverage in the program is service, it also gives and provides an image and a brand that this program is producing nurses who knows how to serve, not only to work as a nurse, but also have the ability to volunteer and to really serve the population. So it's also a factor. I mean, for especially nonprofit or like organizations that funds an educational institution, it's very important to leverage that strength, that you have that brand producing nurses who are service, willing to volunteer. On the other hand, for private, of course, there are a lot of opportunities as well. If you are, for example, into virtual simulation or, for example, mid to high fidelity simulation in the nursing lab or nursing skills and technologies, for example, the maker learning aspect that can happen into that is for you to probably like make a what we call open lab. You call it open lab. So for the students to become like acquainted with the technologies that they need to see in hospital facilities that are probably magnet accredited or hospitals that have all these top of the line technologies, you need to introduce that even in your lab for them to see it in actuality. Like for example, medication, the latest medication dispensing system, it might be that you are teaching the students or the learners to really use it, even using simulated drugs. But again, maker approach is like make an open lab, meaning they can go there anytime, they can be assisted by the technician for them to practice as much as they want, for them to learn. I mean, how to use that.
In the
Right.
startup world, we call it incubation centers,
Yeah.
right? And I think you're creating that for
Yes.
see, I want to come to Dr. Dipali here. Listen, I mean, we're all talking about the importance. I think it's a given that maker communities make better students, better people, better humans. But is that a challenge sometimes to convince schools and parents to talk about, and I want to bring in Sri Lakshmi also after you, Dr. Dipali. Is it a challenge? Do people really understand the importance? Because this is usually generalized as extracurricular activities, and Myra, I'll bring you in as well after this, but Dr. Dipali, this is more for you. This extra, and I want to use the quotes, this extracurricular activity we all know is important. I love it because I get a lot of my business once I train the corporate leaders, because obviously they haven't learned it. So I make more money, so I'm happy. But at some point of time, how do you convince? Because Pilates is not something that people would naturally pick up. One, it sounds too healthy, you know, even when I listen to the word. So how do you see, you know, what do you see as a challenge with respect to convincing schools, convincing parents that this is something that's critical, that's very important? What do you do? What are your thoughts on that?
Very interesting question, Teja. I believe that, you know, if you're finding a solution, suppose if you need, let me simplify this. If you are looking at fixing a plug with a socket, you need that particular plug to get into that socket for it to work. You can't just have theoretically, you know, okay, this is the plug, this is how you make it, and this is the socket. Go ahead and, you know, plug it. It will not work. You will have to look at the outcomes, and that's where the essence of maker learning, where you know, the platform for creativity, for innovation, and also intangible outcomes is exactly what you're looking at, and not just measurements and analytics and data. It's more than that. It is intangible things that we are looking at when we're talking about maker learning spaces. So specifically coming to this question, it is very important. I do approach a lot of schools to get Pilates, you know, younger in age, because they say that the blueprint is formed early in life. And if you teach them early about, you know, very basics of how you sit, how you stand, how you walk. Like if you see around, how many of you are, you know, sitting in a way where your bodies are going to talk to you once you go back to your rooms, right? So these all are inculcated, you know, when you're very early on age, and it translates in your life every single day what you learn. So, you know, when we're talking about delivering something like this as an extracurricular activity, it's not difficult for people to understand, because when they apply the same things to their life, they understand this very well where I'm coming from. It is coming from the very basic that, you know, it's just not closed spaces that we have maker learning, but then something which goes beyond the classes. It's your life that you live. You know, you have to experiment whatever you're learning and apply it to your daily life, and that's where the true essence of what you're learning, you know, comes as an outcome. So I believe, you know, today's educational institutes need to look into these ways how they can inculcate something like Pilates, which is like, of course, many people think about Pilates as a celebrity workout, as a workout where, you know, athletes are amping up their game. But then to let you know, Pilates roots deeply into the rehabilitative power, into letting you know how you're going to sit on the sits bone and not behind the sits bone, you know. Stuff like that are taught in school.
Stop making everybody conscious now. I saw everybody change.
No, this is something very practical, where, you know, I have treated so many people with long-lasting back pains for years, and no amount of medicine or you know, neuroblocks or anything else has helped, but then just simple awareness of you are supposed to sit on the mountain tips of your pelvis enough. That's good enough. So, something
So-
like that where, yeah.
So
go ahead.
essentially, Dr. Dipali, what you're saying is to kind of talk to them about benefits in the long term is probably
That's
one of the
right.
ways to kind of convince them. But listen, it's like a TEDx speaker telling an introvert, it's easy to get on stage and speak, right? Because I know, Sri Lakshmi, you come from my city in India, and it's a difficult market with respect to, because it's a competitive, parents are more competitive than students in that part of the world. How do you deal with these challenges? How do you convince people to
Right.
believe that this is important?
So let's first remove that extra and replace it with main. So that's, the most important aspect. And I was just talking to one of the educators in the room who's, from Singapore, and we were discussing what's the pain point, in the education system. So it was, again, the conversation came back to, the teacher moving from one school to the other, or so irrespective of whether you're from India or you're Singapore or it's in the US, the problem of, how do we equip the teachers ultimately who are the ones who is going to work with children. And so I'd like to mention two very specific points on how do we really make this possible and make all of this as a main component, main activity within the school. So one big challenge is empathy. And when we first started our organization, we wanted our kids to identify problems and then solve these problems. The biggest problem was finding a problem.
That's what Ashima
Trust me,
was
finding
saying.
a problem is the biggest problem because there is no empathy. Most of the time, empathy is confused with sympathy. What we do is show sympathy and think, I'm, empathetic. No. Empathy is putting yourself in someone's shoe and understanding what it actually is. One example where one of our, student group has gone to blind school. They said, we want to do this for them, we want to do that for them, and say like, this will be a crazy idea. And then we had to give them 2 weeks to understand what empathy is. Empathy is making them do what they need, not what you think is needed. So in the same way for teachers, we always want our teachers to do what we think, they should be doing, rather understand what is that this teacher needs in order to equip the students. So if we just flip that mindset, there will be a lot of change in the education system.
So the reason why I was smiling when you were saying that, Sri Lakshmi, is just next door we have the CXO conference, and talk to any startup community and they'll say one of the major reasons why startups fail today is because of the fact that they don't get their ideas validated. Right? And what it seems to me you're all saying here is teaching students how to identify the problem seems to be the bigger problem here. And that's where maker communities can give them those simulators, incubation centers early. But I see the connection perhaps why startups fail is because they never learned how to identify the problem in the first place in school, and now they struggle. So we're almost, that screen
We
is
only
shouting.
taught about math word problems. We're not taught
Real
about
world problems.
real problems.
So, but since that screen is shouting at me that time's up, and I know this is the last panel, so I dare not delay this beyond what is required, but thank you. I think you've all made some brilliant points here. You all obviously do this day in, day out, and that experience spoke. So Benjamin, Myra, Dr. Dipali, Ashima, Sri Lakshmi, thank you for being on the panel. Let's open the forum for quick questions if they may have. Go ahead. There used to be a mic there the last time I knew, but I think somebody can help you out.
Yeah, why don't you take this mic, please? Come along.
Ashima, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much for the wonderful insights. I have a question for Teja, Mr. Teja. So with your extensive experience in developing virtual learning platforms, what innovative strategies and tools do you believe are most effective in creating a scalable yet highly engaging online program for K-12 students, particularly in fostering sustained attention, motivation, and active participation in digital-first learning environment? Thank you.
Okay. Lot of fancy words in that question, but I'll keep it simple, and that's the answer. Keep it simple, right? Today, anybody who's burnt their hands in tech, right, or anybody who's developed anything using technology, they would tell you that the possibilities are limitless when you get into technology. There is nothing technology, of course, nothing is too extreme. There is mostly nothing that technology can't build for you today, as long as you know why you're building what you're building. So I again go back to keep it simple. Make it, back to what Ashima was saying, goes back to what Lakshmi was saying. Who are you building this? Are you in service of your audience, or are you in service of yourself? When I'm in service of myself, I'm building products that make me more money. And guess what? These are the products that don't sell. But when I'm in service of my learner, my user, my customer, then I'm building products that are sustained, that require lesser marketing budgets because people love it, which means they talk about it, you go viral. So instead of listing out a few technologies, what I see is lack of design thinking, lack of empathy, Sri Lakshmi spoke, lack of focus on the service and the community that Benjamin spoke about. So I would go back in one word, keep it simple.
Can I just do a follow-up to that? Hi. I enjoyed your talk. I really want to know if any one of you this question sort of appeals to, pops out to, along the lines of, did you identify an actual problem? And with startups, the idea of, was the problem validated? Did y'all ever experience a student or a group of students who identified something, they worked on something, they made a project, and then they were stoked to use their own thing? Like they created their own viral moment for themselves that wasn't just for someone else, but like they couldn't wait to get their hands on their own product.
I can take that. So a few years ago, India cancelled a few banknotes. We called it demonetization. Right? It was huge. Everybody got impacted. Imagine 2 or 3 of your in-service currencies are no longer valid overnight. So what it saw was long lines at the ATM machines. People were standing waiting for cash, new cash to be taken in. And 2 young students somewhere in Nagpur or somewhere that in Maharashtra they created a website that said, you know what, we will stand in the queue for you, right? And we will call you when it's your turn, just come and collect your cash. They pivoted that very soon into saying, we'll also tell you which ATMs in their city actually have available cash so that you don't have to work. Eventually, that came into 10-minute delivery. So now they've pivoted even further to become a multi-million business of delivering what we call hyperlocal deliveries. And this was started by 2 students. So it does happen. And when I happened to interview them in one of my podcasts, and I asked them, what made you do this? I said, we were under immense pressure to do something because a lot of our student groups were already building startups and we didn't. And we were constantly looking for problems to solve rather than things to build, right? Because once you know which problem to solve, there are 10,000 tech professionals in India that can help you build something for that. But I think identifying the problem, I think that's an example that I can.
Thank you.
I'd like to add something to that. I'm going to ask everyone to please get their hands on this book, Jugaad. I don't know if you've heard of it. Jugaad comes from the word make do, in the moment. And it's a very typical word in India. Another example is, when you're standing on the streets over there and there's hustling and bustling and the cows are coming and the dogs are coming and you're having a nice pani puri perhaps, you'll actually see a lot of things happening around simultaneously, and problems are everywhere. You just need an eye. I think just an eye for detail to find it. And you know, he gave a brilliant example. I've got one more to share. Just a while back, I was speaking to a student, and he said that I really wanted to do something, and I want to start something of my own. He goes back, and then he realizes that all the problems that he had identified, there was something already there in the market, and he was immensely wooed by luxury market, and he just wanted to own that next Louis Vuitton, the Chanel, or the Prada. And he just happened to strike a conversation over lunch, and there were two other ladies sitting over there, and they run a brilliant firm over here. They have changed the story. Remember when you made those two air quotes, extracurricular? Flip, I think I'm just using hashtag flip from Lawrence's word, that seems to be the word of the day. Just change the story, reposition the word. They said that I would not be able to use somebody else's second-hand clothing. They've changed the story over here, and they're doing brilliantly. And then they've said pre-loved luxury goods. That's branding, that's positioning, that's convincing. You need to have a story, and that's what's missing in a lot of startups today. The problems are just the same. I mean, what an Apple is doing is what Samsung is doing. It's the story that needs to connect. So I'm going to use the word flip it, position it, brand it, convince it, and your keywords to go about it is just change the story. Just say it with beauty.
And tell the kids it's okay if that idea is already there.
Yeah.
There can always be a better mousetrap.
I go to that store, pre-loved luxury. I mean, I'd never think about going and using somebody else's bag or somebody else's shoe. But then it just struck to me, okay, pre-loved, why not?
Great, thank you.
I think in the whole conversation, the beauty about the maker's environment is failure. You cannot fail in your exams. You cannot fail in your university. You cannot fail once you get a job. The cannot is the typical society thing, not that that's, you know, my opinion about failure. But, you know, what makers, you said, you know, about students, you know, making things happen, that allows them to fail so many times. And that's okay, because you're making something and you fail and nobody questions you when it's the process of makers community. So that is one thing that you can, you know, really provide your students.
Thanks.
I was so excited with what she said, I was almost grabbing the mic off her mouth. Anyway.
We saw that.
In the corporate, we call it, they use something called agile technologies.
Agile.
And one of the most important aspect of agile is to fail fast. Right? Imagine if they're failing fast in school, what they can achieve in life afterwards. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other questions that we can answer? All right. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
I think it's
such
been
a
wonderful
brilliant
to be here.
audience. Thank you as well, Teja. Thank you so much for moderating. Take care. Sri Lakshmi.
Thank you so much for that wonderful discussion there. Come on down and have your photo, everybody. Okay, everyone, so that was our last discussion for today. So we're about to end day one, but it's time for us to celebrate the trailblazers whose contributions are shaping the future of education. This recognition session honors individuals and organizations that have gone above and beyond to inspire change and innovation. So first of all, I'd like to welcome up to the stage Srihari Pralahad, founder of Spirens Solutions. Please, if you could join us here on the stage, and he'll help us in presenting these awards. Okay. Okay, so our first award for this evening is an Excellence in Education Award, and this goes to Alan Tupikov. Alan is the Executive Director of Finding Other Solutions. Come on up, Alan. And next we have Dr. Anand Fati. Dr. Fati brings over 20 years of expertise in tech leadership roles, including CEO of Pi Study, CTO, and AI Practice Head. Let's put our hands together for Dr. Anand. And our next award, also an Excellence in Education Award, Dr. Benjamin Joel Brebonaria. Dr. Benjamin, or known as Benjo, is a nursing education specialist coach and multiple award-winning leader. Now our next award is an Outstanding Organization Award. And this award goes to the Berlin School of Business and Innovation. And going back to another Outstanding Excellence in Education Award, Dr. Dureshwar Mirza. Dr. Dureshwar is a lifestyle consultant and DM lifestyle consultant, is the recipient of an honorary doctorate degree from a US university, certified by UK and USA, licensed in Dubai as a Master Life Transformational Coach, Master NLP Coach, and Master Hypnotherapist, Master Timeline Therapist, Herbal Teacher. Also, Excellence in Education Award, Harshavan Mishra. With over 2 decades of experience in learning and development across industries such as FMCG, telecom, and logistics technology. He currently leads the L&D function at Blackbuck, managing sales capacity, talent and organization development and customer experience training for a large workforce. Our next award is a Visionaries Award. Jalaj Desai. Jalaj is the head of school at Saddle River Day School, a pre-K-12 independent school located in New Jersey since 2020. And now an Excellence in Education Award, Jaya Venkatram. Ms. Venkatram, an Associate Vice President of Quality Assurance at Vibhir Group of Schools. Our next award is an Outstanding Organisation Award. And this award goes to Leadership Academia University. And another Excellence in Education Award, Leonard Posatskov. Leonard, CEO of Luminary Inc., specializes in building high-performance technology teams, architecting solutions from the ground up and managing re-architecture and migration projects. Our next award is an Outstanding Organisation Award, and this goes to People Pro Training Institute. And our next award is an Excellence in Education Award, Mabel Maria Newton. Mabel is the head of ELL at GEMS Founders Al Mizar.